Of a table talk.
Yeah. We are live. Hey, yeah. Do we have parental consent?
Yeah, right.
All right.
Hollywood?
Yeah.
All right.
We are live now.
Oh, shit. James, don't watch your language, buddy.
He's not on camera yet, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't give a shit.
okay.
Speaking of language.
Yep. So while we're waiting for Phil,
Yeah, you're up, buddy.
I'm,
Say hi, James.
so state your name. What's your name?
Talking to the mic.
Into the microphone.
James.
James, into the microphone. Here, turn the microphone a little bit to you.
Like this?
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
What's your name, buddy?
James.
James what?
Wendler.
And what's it like having Jim as your father?
It's really awesome.
Do you call him dad, daddy, father, or just paw?
Dad.
How come not paw? Like, wouldn't paw be more cool?
What do you call Grandpa?
Pop.
Oh, I get it. So Jim's not old enough yet.
don't wanna be-
All right, here's one. What about your mom?
What do you call him?
Is she awesome? Mm-hmm. You weren't as excited about that as you were your dad. What's up with that?
James, you're on TV right now, buddy. Look. All right. Keep on talking, buddy.
Yeah, so what's up with that? What's up with your mom? Who rules the house? Who makes the rules? Don't look at your dad. Who makes the rules? You make the rules? Your mom?
Did you do your homework today, buddy?
I say, no, wait a minute. This is called diversion. Does your mom make the rules?
Yes.
There's no right or wrong answer. You're okay.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? So you kind of live by your own rules. So you're learning from your dad. You're doing good, man. You're doing really great.
All right.
You are. You're doing good. You're live. You know what YouTube is, right? You watch cartoons on it all the time. So you're live on YouTube, and you're doing awesome.
What's your favorite thing to watch on YouTube, James?
Bright side.
Yeah.
They have.
Is that what? Now, he's not in school yet, is he? So it's not like summer vacation. It's just his life is vacation.
We homeschool.
Homeschool. Okay. So are you? Oh, so you don't get a break.
No.
You have school every day. Is that awesome?
Fucking hates it.
What about exercise? Do you exercise every day?
Not so much.
Not so much. Every other day?
Yes, he does. James, what did you do today? What exercise when I was lifting? What did you do? Squats.
Hey,
Squats.
do you watch football with your dad?
Not.
Not that much?
No.
No. Do you like football?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite team? Ohio State?
Cleveland Browns.
Well, let's say college.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pro. So who's your favorite college team?
Michigan?
Ohio State?
Yeah.
Ohio State? Cool. The guy next to you is a coach for Ohio State.
Right here.
He's the one that's going to be taking your seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, bud.
So you did a great job
Thank you,
introducing him. Can you say, welcome, Phil Matusz?
Welcome, Phil Matusz.
Great job. There you go. Thank
Good
you.
luck, man. Dave will put you on the burner. I'm sweating my butt off. All right, bud.
Awesome
You're
job,
done.
buddy.
Good job, bud. Here, you take those. There you go. Dave, I'll see you.
Yeah,
I'll
we'll see you. Yeah, I'll
text
let you know.
The TV shows.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's most important. And then I'll get back to you about the training stuff.
Yeah, fuck that shit.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You did great out there.
Yeah, you did fine, bud.
All right, we might have to do a real quick
Watch it. All right, take it.
readjustment of mics.
Yeah.
No.
All right, we're going to go ahead and run the intro again.
Okay, so he's going to hit the intro. Do you want to do his mic check just to be sure? Because I'm sure
Live, but sure.
just adjust the mic levels if needed.
So go ahead and speak into the mic, bro.
Yeah, you can raise it up. I'm sure you're used to it.
Check. Mic.
I think it dropped a little bit.
Check. Mic 1, 2.
And then, Phil, we always try to keep it about a fist length away.
Okay.
So it's kind of uncomfortably close, but
It is uncomfortably close. Sorry.
it's... All right, we're going to run this intro here.
Man, that's their drive, that's their passion. Critics don't matter, this don't matter. They're going to do whatever it fucking takes to be the best at what they do.
Welcome back to another edition of Table Talk. This is Dave Tate. Today my guest is Phil Matusz. Do I pronounce that correctly when I say that?
Yeah, that's right, Matusz.
Okay, very cool. And we had a brief intro with James Wendler, which was a little surprise, I guess is the word.
Yeah,
I'm
he
looking
did a
for.
heck of a job.
He did a good job.
Yeah,
for a
he did a
little
good
kid,
job.
he did a really good job. Real
He's
good.
natural.
A natural with that. We did throw some questions out to you guys that we will get to, but we kind of have our own agenda. I have my own agenda that I put out beforehand on the topics that we kind of wanted to stay with. So it's going to be more leadership-based, character-based, the stuff that I think we can go a little deeper in.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can sit and talk strength and conditioning
Yeah.
if people want. I think there's some questions on that. We'll hit that later, but get into the other stuff first. For now, let's get into just the housekeeping. The stuff that people are going to want to know that are Ohio State fans. So what's the team look like now? Are they on point? And obviously you're not going to say they're not,
Oh, yeah.
But are they, let me think of a word, how to phrase this question. Are they at expectations, above expectations, or maybe a little bit below for right now this week? Because every week matters. It builds.
Right now, I'd say we're at expectation.
Okay.
The one thing that this state has to realize is that they got to be really proud of their Ohio State Buckeyes. We got a lot of great players. We got a lot of talented players. But the thing is, we recruited very, very well, and that's a credit to our coaching staff, Coach Meyer, obviously Coach Day. But the players that we have in-house, it kind of goes back to the Elite FTS Summit. You win with people. Woody Hayes said it best. And from our coaching staff to our support staff to our players, you're talking about some of the best players in the country, but you're talking about some of the best kids too. And they're young men. And the thing is, in our program, it's fourth and inches. Coach had it on his board the other day, and that's the mentality right now. And our players are getting molded through that. And a lot is being revealed. And that's, just like here, you find out a lot about people through hard, uncomfortable times, and it reveals character. So right now, I'd say we're at expectations. Give it a few more weeks, and then they recharge after July 4th break, and you're going to come back and you're going to see a locked-in, rejuvenated team. And that's what Coach Marotti does a great job of. Every year is different, right? It's different chemistry. You look back at the Rose Bowl, right? As soon as that game is over, we're planning. We've been planning. We're planning in November. We're preparing in December. We're thinking about what we're going to do with our players in January, February, March. The thing is, it's an art. Philosophical objectives for this team varies from year to year based on who you have. And I think if you have the A players in the game, right, you got the best players possible out of this whole recruiting trail, because recruiting is a son of a gun, right? You're talking about millions of dollars. You're talking about coaches going on the road for months. You're talking about coaches traveling away from their families, going in other people's homes to try and say, we have the best opportunity for your son, hands down. What they're going to get from a football exposure, because they're all gung-ho on football.
Yeah.
But realizing that they're a student athlete first, right? We're going to give them a great education. If they have focus on some sort of major or expertise they want to get to after their time is done, our staff is phenomenal, because we'll put together a plan, an action plan for each kid. And you're talking about thousands of recruits, and it's like, we'll get it done. We'll get it done. And that's I believe what separates us from competition is our ability to be extremely adaptive and specific with each kid and find out if this kid is a really good fit for us. So it's like you hiring staff, right? You can't miss on a staff member, right? If you have someone that comes in and they're cancerous, it could bring the whole thing down, right? So with our players, it's same mentality. We got to get the right kids, and we have been. Our coaching staff done a heck of a job, and I give them credit, because that's a reason why I'm not a position coach. I don't want to be on the road recruiting. I want to be at home base. I'm at home base 47 weeks out of the year, besides conference and then away games and then bowl trip, right? I'm locked in at home base, and I appreciate that, and that's why I love what I do. And, our players, Coach Marotti and his vision and Coach Day and his vision, those two are aligned. And I really believe that people should be proud. They just don't know what's going in right now in the work log and what they're doing behind our doors, because we keep things pretty tight. They just don't know, but everyone just knows that they should be pretty proud. And they are. This state is behind the Buckeyes more so than I've ever been before. Like I've never experienced something like this, where the city, every person, you say go Bucks, you're getting it right back. You know what I mean? You can go in the grocery store, you'll see a 70, 80-year-old lady, and she's got her Cardell Jones shirt on or her JT Barrett shirt on, and it runs deep. Scarlet and gray is in every corner of this city, and it trails all around the state. So absolutely, hands down, our players are sitting good right now.
The one thing that I've always pointed out, I don't know if I've ever said it on a podcast or publicly at all, is there's a difference between a university that's a downtown big city university than a university that's sitting kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And of course, I don't want to throw university names out there because I don't want to misrepresent, for one thing, and I may be wrong on some of them that I'm throwing out there. But a lot of times with the downtown universities, big school downtown, there's still haters.
Absolutely.
I mean, you got Ohio State and Michigan rivalries going, all the time. So they're just waiting outside the doors for the kids to screw up. Where a lot of times what you find in the non-downtown university settings is they still have haters, right? But they're not standing right outside their door. They're not right there in their down the street, waiting with paparazzi and all this other kind of stuff. It's I think it would increase the pressure on the coaching staff, for one, and the pressure that the coaching staff has to put on the players for two, like watch your, watch what you do, watch what you say, watch where you go, watch who you go with, because all these little things matter, as we've seen over the years with mostly schools that are big city, downtown schools, with the exception of one really big one, but that took 25 years to kind of manifest with what that is. But I think that brings another dynamic to the character development and the leadership and the recruiting especially, because I didn't think as much about the recruiting until you were just speaking about it now, that you're going out trying to get the best recruit, but you're also interviewing. You think the kid's interviewing, and the kid is interviewing the school, but not so much as the school, while trying to sell the school, is at the same time trying to figure out, is this even somebody that we want to sell? That's a weird sell right there. You know what I'm saying? Say we sold cars for a living. That's like, okay, I want to sell this car, but maybe not to you. But I still got to sell you all the benefits.
Absolutely.
You might not work. And that's a testament to what you're talking about. These guys being on the road and then putting together all these action plans, for the kids, knowing maybe in their gut, this one might not work out because it may take more visits, and sometimes you may not know. But the one question that came to mind before all that, was what is the, I don't know if I want to say attrition rate or retention rate. How many new kids come in each year?
Right now our freshman class is 19. So we did have some mid-years come in, and our mid-year class is always anywhere between 5 and 10. And then our summer crew comes in, so our incoming freshmen and then our walk-ons. So right now we have 19 newcomers, and then you got maybe 1 or 2 grad transfers. And what's going on lately right now is this portal. All right, you hear about the portal, and there's a lot of teams that have players They don't like the culture. They don't like the coaching staff. And it's becoming this free agency almost.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're going through right now is our numbers are low. And that's a credit to Coach Meyer and Coach Day and Coach Mick, hands down, and our coaching staff. And our players believe in what we have going on within our walls, and they're invested. They're invested, and we're tough, and we're real with them. And that's all we can do. And their buy-in is 100%. 100%. They believe it. They hold each other accountable to it. And you see it and you feel it walking through the locker room, because that's the biggest thing. What you see and feel in the locker room is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
There's no hiding there.
One of the rants that I've made multiple times over the past are the coaches that make statements such as, I've worked with thousands of athletes. And then, I'll speak to somebody like yourself, or actually I spoke to a buddy at the last conference that we had. Like, buddy, just think for a minute, how many athletes at a Division II school maybe that has all sports?
Mm-hmm.
How many athletes are there? Like 400, something like that. If you do the math and you calculate it out, just to get to 3,000, you're looking at 30 years.
Oh, unreal.
It's so for these strength coaches that are out there in the industry selling their services, and they're saying that they've trained thousands of athletes.
Yeah.
I beg to differ.
Unreal.
If they say hundreds, then I'll maybe listen, because you're talking about 20 new ones that come in, right? So let's say you got, and this is just football, granted, you're not working with the whole entire school, which is a different story. But how many, what's the roster right now? Like
123.
123, which will get cut down to what? Because you get
105 for camp.
105. So basically 100 a year, 20 new coming in each year, run that over 20 years, you're a far cry from 3,000.
Yeah.
So guys, when you're looking and you're being sold, I've worked with thousands. The one thing I think you should really consider, if this is a coach that you're looking at for education, mentorship, or to hire, is the only way that they could have worked with that many people is that they've been fired over 2,600 times.
No doubt.
To be able to get that, because there's no other way you can get to the numbers unless you've worked 10 jobs in 1 year, or you've had a lot of clients that came in once, fired you and left, and then you just sold more. So it's kind of a false statement. So with that, the other house cleaning question, I guess, would be the transition. It seems like it's been a smooth transition. It seemed like it was going to be a smooth transition with Urban, passing the torch. You're not going to say no, you know what I'm saying? It's like a lot of these questions are kind of loaded because you know what the answers are going to be. Was the transition what everybody expected it to be? Was it as easy as everybody expected?
I think it ended up being a little bit easier.
Okay.
Right? Gene Smith, who's a phenomenal leader, who makes sure that he's seen throughout our facility multiple times through the week. So we're seeing our AD walk through our weight room. We're seeing our AD walk through our facility. And he's heavily involved. It was a lot easier because he saw the value in our support staff and the infrastructure that we had set up. And that comes from strength conditioning. It comes from recruiting. It comes from player development, academics. Everything is set. Because one of the focal points is obviously Coach Mick. He's in charge. He's our assistant AD for football sports performance. So he sees everything, and it's deeply rooted, and it's successful. So Gene saw that, and he's like, well, why change it? And we had a great head coach coming in with Coach Day, who's been here, been with Coach Mick, seen the expectations, seen the standards and the results that we're able to put forth. Why change it? Why change it? And we're highly productive. Our team we operate at 110 miles an hour every single day. And frankly, that room, you can go to war with any one of those guys, those strength coaches, any given day, and we'll be on point. That's our job. And us five, along with our 5 interns that help us, we train. I wouldn't go to war with anybody else.
So let's jump right in the middle to, I was out there last week to observe the training. And the one thing that I noticed more than anything was the coaching of the athletes, the coaches' awareness, right? So we speak a lot about, say JL working at the spot or somebody working with somebody in the private sector. You really have to pay attention to a lot of things, all the nonverbals and stuff that we're going to discuss. That's part of the philosophy that what you guys do as well. But the coaches, it didn't matter how tired the kids were from what I saw coming in off of the field. It didn't matter because the coach's game was already higher than the kids. So they stepped into a higher standard of expectation than they just walked out of. Well, a different standard of expectation. The weight room's different than the field. So it's a different mindset. One's more aggressive, one's more fluid. I guess the easiest way for me to break that down. And bam, as soon as they were in there, all coaches were engaged, everything was on fire, no kid was not pushed, and they were all pushed. So it didn't matter really if the kid wanted to be there or didn't want to be there. They were still going to do what they had to do if they liked it or not, because the coach was engaged and in their face. And there were, I believe, 6 groups, 4 or 6.
We ended up having 4 that day.
4 that day. So it was split up over the room. So I saw 2, obviously more than I saw the other because there's the other side of the room. But it was the same, whenever I crossed over, it was the same intensity, from that. And it's, positive intensity. It's not negative, in any way whatsoever. But it was impressive to see, because this was the 3rd or 4th session of the day. Which one was it for you guys?
It was the 3rd. Yeah, it was
the
the 3rd. Yeah,
it was the last one, so it was the 3rd.
Yeah.
So you're done. You're shot. I mean, you've already had 6 hours of training kids, and your coaches and your assistant coaches are 100% on point, making sure these kids are getting the work done. So with that in mind as a jump-off point, how do you get the staff, the coaches, to do that? Because now you're talking about the coaching teamwork, not the players, but you got to have the coaches right for the players to be right. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to work, I don't want to talk a lot about, the head coach, I don't want to talk a lot about Mick because he's overseeing a lot of stuff, but he's still on the floor. He's still on the floor. He's I don't want anybody to misunderstand that. He's on the floor busting his ass, probably just harder, harder than anybody else because he's got to oversee it all. But take that from, your level down, with all those guys. What is the process? How do they get to that point? What is the structure, the dynamic, the daily coaching and the stand-ups and just...
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I'd say our staff of 5 is very unique. Coach Mick assembled us. We're all different. And the best thing about Coach is he lets us hone in on our own coaching philosophy, so to speak. He's going to let you be you, right? So it's not like he wants 4 other Coach Micks on the floor. He wants 4 people, different mindset than he is, because what happens is you go through training, right? You might have a client that doesn't respond to you or doesn't respond to another coach, but all of a sudden they train with this coach one day and all of a sudden production's through the roof. Well, then why did we wait so long? Why didn't we get him with that coach sooner? And that's what each coach has the ability to give to each and every kid, is the ability to connect, because I might not connect with a kid till maybe 2nd or 3rd year in the program. Maybe right out the gate, me and a kid, it works. It works really, really well, and you understand it. He's only going to listen to you. And it's weird because some guys only listen to Coach Mick, some guys only listen to Quinn or Nico or Chris, but our staff is very unique because the culture is established, right? So it goes into, one of your podcasts you started talking about values, values of your home and values of what's in the workplace, and then what we put values on training, right? So within our walls, the standard is set. We know the culture of the football program. and we know our philosophical objectives right now this summer. And there's no hiding, and that's the best thing about it. Every day is graded, right? So we make it clear cut. You either win or you lose. You get a grade every single day. You're evaluated from that coach, and you either win or you lose. So if you come in, right, you're sore and you're blown out from the day before because you actually strained, you actually exerted maximal force, and all of a sudden you're sore, right? And you come in, your body language is speaking a million things, but guess what? We got a lot of things on the board that we got to do today. So all of a sudden your behavior in nature is going to be poor, right? Your head's dropping, you're walking through the door, you know you don't want anything to do with training. And we almost say it's like fake it till you make it, right? So when you cross that threshold, right, that means something. When you step foot from our training room into our weight room, there's no turning back. So all of a sudden you walk around that corner, you're getting on the scale, and it's time to train. So you step on that scale, it's a win or a loss. So you're at your body weight or you're not, right? So you could be taking an L right out the gate. If you're 320-pound nose tackle and you weigh 325, you took a loss. So what's that do to the psyche? It throws it out the window. Or it goes kind of back into what I discussed on the summit, right? We have this great system in place with our Focus 3 team, Tim Kite and Brian Kite. And it's just E plus R equals O, right? There's an event that's going to happen. You control the response to get the appropriate outcome that you want, right? It's a system that's so simple, and people overlook it. They're like, I'm not going to buy into that. That's ridiculous. It's almost too cute, right? But it's so systematic that it gets these kids. Like we have a few kids that from Texas and Florida who they're wild Mustangs, right? But we got them to buy into this system because we create so many events for these kids to elicit the outcome that we want, and we're trying to pinpoint the response from the kid. So guess what? You took an L on the scale, right? All of a sudden you get some chatter from us assistants, right? You lost a day, blah, 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 blah. Go ahead. We're looking for you to chirp back. We're looking for you to roll your eyes or smack your lips. We're looking for you to mouth off to one of us coaches. As soon as you do that, you take another loss for the day, right? So we're literally changing behaviors moment from moment. When you walk in the door to dynamic warm-up to what we do in the weight room, you have a chance. So like if you're a kid that's down and out, it's going to be hard to get momentum coming back, right? It's taking one loss after another, but then you find out who your true competitors are, right? And that it goes back into our staff. Our culture's aligned, right? We got competitors in our assistant office, and Coach Mick he's swinging. He's one of the most highly consistent human beings I've ever met. I give him credit for that, and I respect him highly for that because he's been doing it a long time. And stories from Heather Mason, he hasn't changed much from Cincy, but he has, from Cincinnati to Notre Dame to Florida, and then obviously here. But he was here in 1987, actually with Coach Meyer. And so he's changed slightly, but he's still who he is. And I give him so much credit for that because you hear guys at Cincinnati talk about Coach Mick, right? And they're talking about these stories on the leg press or doing wall sits. And they're laughing about it. They're talking about it. They're reminiscing about it. And it all goes back to this tough love approach, right? We're going to give these kids what they need, not necessarily what they want. And sometimes within this profession, things are getting a little bit too cute, right? But at the same time, things are getting out of hand, right? We all know what's happening within college athletics. It's becoming quite the scene. And for us to do our due diligence and making sure our staff is on point, that's our job. That's our job. So us 5 football strength coaches, we have to be on point, especially us 4 assistants. We all have job descriptions, right? And we all have our uniquely different roles, which we can dive in. I actually wrote ours out. But each of us, we have our job description, right? So it's, what you're doing. So if you mess up on it, you got to take ownership of it, right? So, and then our roles are uniquely different, right? Coach Quinn, he's a phenomenal leader, and everyone leads in their own way, right? He's not going to be the over-energized coach. He's very disciplined. He's a great teacher. One of our new strength coaches, Coach Chris Fenelon, he's very disciplined in his mannerisms. He gives great cues, and he's able to relate to athletes. You know, he'll always get some sort of emotion out of them, right? Good or bad, you know, trying to get under their skin. And then Coach Nico, one of our interns, categorized him as a Tasmanian devil, right? So he's high energy, and he spills it. And I greatly appreciate him for that. And then myself, my own coaching persona, I'm going to be locked in, and I'm going to be dialed into detail. And I'm going to talk to these kids like human beings. So if they disrespect me in any sort of manner, right, I'm going to have that conversation and pull them aside. But at the end of the day, I'm going to love them up, and it's going to be tough. And I'm going to be clear as day with them, and I'm not going to sugarcoat things. And you get to appreciate each and every one of our coaches, because Coach Mick is unique in his way. Right, he is tough. You know, if you're not doing right in the program, you know, it's hard to get back in his good graces. Like, he makes you work for it, and that's what these young kids need. That's what this generation needs, is just hard, tough work on a consistent basis. Because who are you consistently? That's your behavior, right? That's how you build trust. So it's like, oh no, you're so inconsistent. I can't trust you, right? I can't put you in the game. But Coach Mick drives this consistency about who he is, so it's clear as day for these kids. So you want to come in and have a bad day? That's your choice. That's your choice. So it's pretty cool to see a young kid come in, not clearly understand, but then get it quickly. Because we all teach our players, and we're great educators. And that's the thing, is like, we go back into teaching, right? You're literally teaching. Even though we have some of the best genetically gifted human beings on the planet, right? They're still 18 or 19 years old, and you got to teach them, right? It's just like teaching, you know, your kid or a 16-year-old kid, and it's so unique because our staff is unique in a sense, and I think we do a phenomenal job of everyone owning what they have on their plate, and then contributing in that mentality of their role. And everyone's unique, and it's really cool to see all 5 of us operate in the same room, same program, but different coach and different connection to each kid. So that's one thing I greatly admire about our staff.
How fast will you audible if the connection isn't there? So you got the group set up, you know you're not connecting with the kid. Do you switch them immediately that day, or do they switch for the next training session?
You know, it's like a weird science. Coach Mick does a great job of just understanding where the team is and vibing with the team. So a few weeks ago, I called a kid out for bad behavior, right? It's nothing personal. We attack behaviors because your behaviors aren't – he's a upperclassman in the program, and that's not what we get from our leaders. So we call him out, pull him aside, had that conversation, kind of what Jim talked about in his podcast with you. You know, that side meeting is so crucial, right? Not calling the kid out. You call the kid out in front of the group, but, right, you had that side conversation privately, right? You pull him aside, and you talk to him like a human being, right? So all of a sudden, like, confrontation between player and coach, we solve it, put it to bed, right? The very next day, right, it happens with the same kid, different player, and they're like, I'm ready for a fight to break out. So sure enough, what's Coach Mick do? He puts all these players with me, right, the other day in a training session. So I got these 2 kids that were ready to go at it. And sure enough, like, they both realize what they have to do, what that behavior has to look like. Because what? They could easily, fight about it and start swinging in the weight room. And then what? Then we got to go talk to the head coach, and then we got to have discipline issues enforced, right? Then all of a sudden we're not going where we need to be. And that's where these kids get to step up as leaders and understand that these behaviors, whatever we put them in, you got to control your temper. You literally have to take a deep breath, and this is what JL and I talked about with RPR, right? So it's like, what's that physiological effect? That's you pressing pause and taking a deep breath. And that's what it is. For some of these kids, just to get them to do that, that's a win. And all of a sudden we start using our systematic approach to E+R=O, and then all of a sudden we start getting massive behavioral swings and productions through the roof because we got the right kids in the game. It goes back to recruiting. So we can teach them this system in place, and it operates in itself. We got upperclassmen teaching sophomores. Our sophomores now want to teach the freshmen. And all of a sudden this thing becomes scary real quick because we got we got a lot of compliant players, and they're going to listen, and they're going to be coached, because that's what goes into our program. If you're not coachable, if you don't like being coached hard, this probably isn't the place for you. And we're very open about that in recruiting. So it's like, we're going to maximize your genetic potential, your whatever genetic limits that you are, but we're also going to maximize every other single aspect of what you're going to bring to the table for Ohio State. And that's all driven through coach, and I greatly appreciate him for that.
All right, so let's go back to they take an L on the scale. Okay, so I mean that's a quick loss.
Oh yeah,
because that's the first thing they do when they walk in. But 4 or 5 steps.
Yep.
Scale. All right. What do you as a coach do at that point? Because the kids got to think, well, this sucks. And you said that you grade them. They're graded every day. All right. So is that an L on a clipboard? There's one L, and then every exercise is it? I guess what I'm asking is what attributes are graded, and how does that look to be able to know if they actually won that day or lost? Because if all they did was step on the scale, puked, got sick, and left, that's not they lost. But and they can win it back, right? They can still win the day, but at what point? Do they win the day at 70% wins? 51% wins? How's that fall into place?
Yeah. So we'll grade our outside work and then our work in the weight room, but you could walk away with a loss on the scale and then win it back from our work on the turf and then our work in the weight room. So you can come out with a few wins, but we're looking for we'll grade things across the board, across the spectrum, from our prowler work to some of our competition-based exercises, pull-ups, 225, whatever it may be. If you don't beat your 225, and you lost, so there's going to be multiple chances for these kids to come out of the hole, but you got to compete, and that's the thing is you can't miss a day. You're going to compete regardless if you like it or not. You're going to compete, so it's an environment where if you want to embrace it, absolutely, the world is yours, kid. Go get it, but if you're hesitant or what we call foggy, like if you're a kid that's just, it's unconscious incompetent, right? You don't know that you don't know, and all of a sudden, you took the L on the scale, and then you rolled your eyes, you mouthed off to the coach, took an L. Then all of a sudden you don't go hard in dynamic warm-up, took an L. And then you go in the weight room, and then you lack focus, intent to move the bar was poor. You didn't listen to your coach, you were distracted. You mouthed off to your teammate, you mouthed off to the coach, you took a loss. So we're literally attacking every aspect where these kids go, and production and behavior and shifting it to where we need to is through the roof. And you can see team chemistry. They're close. They're a really, really close team. So it's hard for them to act out of line without someone saying something.
Now, if it's a exercise, say the pull down, that's when you guys are doing, or the row, and they don't get an extra rep, or they don't get the weight that they used prior, is that an out? If it's not progressively always going up, are they taking an out?
Yeah, it's a great example. You're supposed to meet some standards, right? So we have standards for every single player, and you know what those standards are. So if your offensive lineman, your 225 should look like this, your broad jump should look like this. That's going to result in some stuff. So if you don't hit those numbers, you're probably going to take a loss. So what were you doing outside of the weight room, right? So if you're training with us for an hour and a half or 2 hours a day, what are you doing with that given 22 or 22 and a half hours and going through your day? So are you not sleeping right? So we educate them on everything. So nutritional, sleeping habits, to recovery modalities. You saw our facility. It's we have a lot of toys.
They have a lot of access.
Yeah, a lot of access to everything that they could even imagine, right? So what are you doing that's not allowing training stimulus to sink in and absorb and allow that training effect to happen? Because the training stimulus, don't get me wrong, it's going to happen. The training stimulus within our facility is going to happen, whether you like it or not. So, the other day, a player, didn't hit his number, okay, we gave him a defining moment, which we call a defining moment, right? Hey, you have to get 17. You have to get 17. So it's like, goes back to that 4th and inches mentality. You have to get 17. Came up short. You know, another conversation like, hey, how many was that? That was 12. No, that was really 8. You lied to me. So we're literally calling kids out as we go. And it doesn't happen much that often anymore. But it allows players to see, like, our coaches aren't skipping a beat wherever we're at. We're holding them accountable, and that's our job. Our job is to coach the kids that are difficult to coach, in a sense. So it's not like, you know, Coach Myers did a great job putting this analogy together. He's like, Donald Duck could coach Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa, right? Our job is to coach the Wild Mustangs, right? That's what we get paid to do. You know, for your job, like that client that comes in that is so beat up, that is so mangled, that's your job's not to coach the easy ones. Your job is to coach the hard ones.
Yeah.
Right. So it's that mentality of, like, you know, the easy ones. The easy ones are the easy ones. The ones that are going to go as hard as they can through that wall. But the ones that are, you know, resistive or don't quite get it, your obligation as a coach is to meet that athlete where they're at, right? And that's for anything. That's for some of our staff members. That's for some of our interns. That's for players. That's for people in general, right? So the ability for people to understand educationally where people are at is huge. So meeting people where they're at is one of the things that young coaches take for granted. And if you can hone in on that, like, that'll help you a ton. So it's like, you know, I was just talking to Jim about, you know, the high school athletes, and we went on a rant about, you know, these high school coaches, like, all of a sudden, like, hey, I got Notre Dame's program, or I got Clemson's program, and we're doing it with our players, and we're like, no, like Jim's cursing up a storm, and it's like, why are you doing that? Like, you got to meet these kids where they're at. And, like, if you're not educated on the Olympic lifts, you probably shouldn't do the Olympic lifts, right? So it's like understanding where you're at too, and understanding that it's not going to look pretty, but as long as you keep developing and honing in on those skills, you're going to get progressively better every single day.
Yeah, I want to come back to meeting them where they're at, but I want to make a side note real quick to those that are listening that are not that familiar with the Division I athlete, or basically just athletes in general, is they need to understand, you know, when I ask the question about, you know, if they can't lift more weight or do one more rep, you know, is that a loss? Well, if you've been training for 10, 15, 20 years, of course you're going to have days that are not going to be like that. So the side note that I want to make here is you guys need to understand, while you're looking at these guys playing on Saturday and they look larger than life, they're 18-year-old kids, they're 19-year-old kids. They're still kids. They're still growing. Some of them still have growth spurts that they're going to hit when they get with you. That could be, you know, 30, 40 pound weight gains. And at the high school level, you know, it's even, so they're beginners in the weight room. So it's you don't want to falsely assume that they can't get another rep or more weight, because they're essentially beginners in the weight room that have never put weight training is their number one priority, especially at Ohio State. Football is their number one priority. And you actually want it to be their number one priority, but still go to class.
Yeah.
But it's not like class is the number one priority and you're going to play football. You can't bullshit me on that one. I've heard all the political banner on that. I'm not falling for it. I know what that's all about. But that's what it is. But that's where it is. So to them, most of them, the weight room is like, man, this is just that crap I have to do. Some of them, rare, but some of them really like it. So with that in mind, I just want those people listening to understand that the general rules of training, if you're a meathead and have been doing this for 10, 15 years, they really don't apply. You got to go back to your first 4 years of training where pretty much anything that you did
absolutely
worked, you know. But these kids have these coaches have a little bit different issue to contend with, and that is the field work, the SPP, you know, the actual football work, the specific work, the level of fatigue, the fatigue management, all those things become probably the biggest workarounds that you have in the weight room, because you kind of know from experience what physical state they're going to come in.
Yeah.
But it's going to change. You know, in a few weeks, it's going to change again.
Oh, yeah.
Then season starts. It's going to change again. You know, so it's a constant state of flux. Getting back to meeting them where they're at, I remember years ago, and I don't want to date myself, but I think it might have been 10 years ago, James Smith wrote an article for our site about the strength coach. And I think it was a point in his life where he was just fed up with it. It's like, this is it. It might have been after he was with Buddy. And it was a phenomenal article, and I need to find it, and I need to repost it as a new, maybe put an intro or something to it to kind of update it a little bit. But basically what he was saying, to summarize it, is there's a group of athletes, kind of like what you were saying. Doesn't matter what you do. Actually, the best thing you probably could do is just leave them the hell alone. Like, here's your own room, you know, here's a remote, here's some video games.
Yeah.
Go chill, train however you want to train, and just leave them the hell alone.
Yeah.
And those, they're your superstars.
Yeah.
You know, that's that top percent where what you don't want to hurt them. That's your number one priority. You can't hurt these guys, because these guys are the ones that are going to determine the first 3/4 of any. This is how I see it. The first 3/4 of any game are determined by those guys. All right. Then there's the group underneath them. Okay. They have this skill set. They have the skills, but they got to work a little bit harder. They're more than likely they're still going to play, but if they don't work, they're probably not going to play. It's just,
you're right.
They have to do the grind. Even with that in mind, you know, that top group. Well, I'll get back to that, but these guys have to do the grind. The top group, they really don't have to, and I've never had a coach tell me otherwise. They really don't have to. Now, there are reasons why they should, which we'll discuss.
Yeah.
All right, and then there's the third group, which are the ones that have to bust their ass.
Oh, yeah.
They have to eat right. They have to do everything right to the point of being meticulous about it. And it has to be their top priority. And I've always been under the input that if that group there actually does make it to the top level, they're the ones that are going to be there for 14 years. You know, because they have the work ethic to carry them through. That top group, I don't think ever develops the work ethic to get them through 3 or 4 years, maybe in the NFL. Then you got the bottom group, which I don't think you guys get, right? You know, it's just,
You'd be surprised.
And they slip in, okay? You know, bad, I don't want to say bad, but wrong recruiting decisions, you know, things like that, or actually attitude. You know, any don't get me wrong on this. Any players that fall into any one of these categories, I'm just talking physical attributes.
Yeah.
You can take the person in the top category and give them a bad attitude, and all of a sudden they suck.
Done.
They're done. Or they don't have the mental fortitude, you know, to be able to step up when they have to, but they're great at stepping up when they're not challenged. All right, so he kind of broke it down that way, like, okay, as a strength coach, there's really only about 50% of the players you really need to worry about. And I got it. I thought it's a great article. One of the best articles I've ever written, or I've ever read. But the reality of the situation is you can't bring new players in to a program like Ohio State and then them walk in and then them see the guys that they've been watching for the last 2 years kicking ass left and right, just kicking it on couches playing video games while they're in the weight room working. It just doesn't work. You know, while it may be deemed unnecessary, what I'm hearing you speak about more so than the physical attributes of the training, the wins, the losses, you may not know what you've been, you know, how it's come across. All the wins and all the losses are being marked up by attitude and character, pride, you know, and how they carry themselves. A set and a rep, you know what the difference between one rep is? It's attitude. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, unless it's a heavy triple, which you're not really going into those. You know what I'm saying? It's rare that you're really going into those types of situations. Right. So you're through the conditioning, correct me if I'm wrong, that you guys are doing, it's more not the strength and conditioning, but it's actually building character in players is what you're doing. And would you agree that it's more the mental, that you're watching the nonverbal mental actually probably a little bit more than the physical?
Yeah.
Like they can bench 500 pounds, that's great, but if they got a poor attitude, it's an L.
Yeah.
Even if it's a 50-pound PR.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
If you're a dickhead after you bench, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You bench a 50-pound PR and you're a complete idiot to the rest of your teammates for the rest of the day. Guess what, man? That's an L.
It's not helping the Buckeyes. Absolutely. So
Good point.
the whole meet them where they're at, we lump our players, like for the most part, majority of our players are developmental, right? And then some that come in, they're bottom of the bottom.
Define developmental.
So developmental is, we look at standards, right? So we look at numbers. We look at, so it'd be like, okay, we got Dave. What's his upper body strength levels look like for his position, right?
Gotcha.
Say you're a guard. Say you're a quarterback. You're definitely a quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But are these standards based upon Ohio State, or are they based upon just talking with other coaches and what you see
This is based on Coach Maratti's
experience
of 30 years of doing this.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it's been dialed in, honed in.
Yep.
And his mind is so creative, and it allows players to understand that, okay, where I'm at right now isn't good enough. Isn't good enough by any means. And then we clearly define it. This is where you're at right now, and this is the plan that we're going to get you here. So they know where they're going. They just have to put forth what they actually have to do in the weight room. So
as an example, just to throw out, you don't need to define the numbers because I wouldn't want Mick to do that because it's his 30 years. Let's say you have a lineman, right? They have a 450 squat that's probably not good enough, right? They got an 800 squat that's probably too far.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
I assume there's a set number that's a goal of what they should be able to do. If they begin to exceed that goal, then does that get not pulled out, but get pulled back a little bit to focus on some of the others?
Yeah, this is a great conversation point, because where the profession is going, like NCAA is going to mandate August 1 that all of our programs are approved. Imagine that. Yeah, that's like, you made the face, like, how's that going to go down? So all these programs have to get approved, and it's up to each university to have their medical oversight, or however they're structured, look at these programs. So that's going to be a huge challenge in itself. So understanding that, like, okay, you have a team, you know your seniors, right?
Well, I need to digest this.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Approved as in the full program, like total number of steps, or just the strength and condition, the whole thing,
top to bottom. Because what's happening?
How?
Exactly. Yeah, it's one thing that is going to change the collegiate scene, right? So it's going to.
You think?
It's gonna put a, if you allow it, it'll put a bad taste in within your walls, right? All of a sudden now you have to prove your program. But if you're a detailed individual, you're going to be just fine. If you're confident in what you're able to do as a strength coach, you're going to be just fine. But it's CYA, it's covering your own tail.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I get you.
So it's allowing our strength coaches, our profession, right? So CSCCA and NSCA, those are two top credentials, right? So it's now shifting towards CSCCA, and that's our typical gold standard certification, because you have to have a mentorship.
Well, you have to have
640 hours. Yeah,
you have to have one or the other to even work as a strength coach.
And where we're moving to now at Ohio State, because Coach Maratti oversees everything, our push is for the CSCCA.
Because of the hours.
For the hours, the mentorship, and what that certification does for the collegiate strength coach. Yeah. So now all of a sudden we got these program approvals, because what's happening, right? We're talking about two issues out there right now, right? Kids are dying through conditioning, right? Yes. And we're talking about rhabdo. Yes. Right? You're going to see it come up. So right there, like, those are your two major issues, right? Then you have your typical, the scene where athletes are hurt in the weight room, which should never happen, right?
It does.
It occasionally happens because they might have
accidents happen.
NFL team, one of the clumsy tight ends dropped the plate on their foot.
Yeah.
Right. That happens. The outlying issues those issues throw those out the window. But those two main
heat issues are the problem.
Right. So now our profession is going to go through these, and every school is going to do it different, from my understanding. But August 1st, it's going to be really exciting to see where we go, because you're going to find out what coaches know and what they don't know. Right.
True.
So diving back into kind of what you asked about with our developmental, I would say it goes back into 10-80-10, right? 10 of our athletes are elite,
Mm-hmm.
80 are developmental, and 10 are at the bottom. And it's so true, because backdate 2016, 2017, we had a offensive center, Remington Award winner. If we took the reins off him, we could have squatted him 800 pounds. But what would have that have done? So we just changed his exercise variation, right? Gone to more conjugate sequence method, right? But most of our young guys, right, we use that sequential method, right? And it turns into long linear,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you meet people where they're at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then your developmental players, the bulk of your 80%, they're going to be at different levels, right? So you have a developmental program. What's that entail? What's that look like? What's the reps and sets? What's the training goal of that phase? And so the cool part is I get to be a part of it and going through these program approvals, because at Ohio State, our goal is to create the gold standard there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what's a program approval look like? Because everyone's going to do it different across the country, but how are we going to do it here? How are we going to embrace this massive event that's happening within collegiate setting? What's our response going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that's what we're driven to do. It's the outcome that we want. We're going to be the best at it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a challenge. Yeah. What are you going? Are you going to back down from it?
Mm-hmm.
But
you have no choice.
You have no choice. And then what are you going to do within the profession? And it goes kind of back to what we were talking about earlier with these values and everything. And I have my own personal goals, but my goals are to impact and inspire this profession and leave it better than I found it, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing with Elite FTS, you are making something special for all these coaches to drive education and do it better than anyone's ever done it before. So as you dive into programs and your players, you have to know the nuts and bolts of your training program and where someone is at. That way you can progressively, ethically, instill a program that's going to help suit that player.
Yes.
And you're not just hey, you look like you can handle 275 today, Dave. Looks pretty good. No, it's okay. Where were we at last week? Okay, it's documented, it's recorded. Let's progress them, and that's our job. And it's not just being the sporadic strength coach anymore. It's not, and it's being calculated in your own way, right? But it's progressively for that single athlete, and that's your job.
All right, the 10-80-10 is intriguing to me. I get it. I see why it is, but the question on that would be, are your captains voted upon by the team, or the coaches have any influence?
The captains are done here coming up soon, so some are transitioned to preseason, and it's heavily player driven.
Heavily player is any coach. I mean, are they coach nominated then player driven, or is it coaches completely out?
The coaches see, and obviously it goes to our leadership council, right? But then there's an ultimate decision of who's going to be best fit to lead the team.
Okay, so the biggest majority of the vote comes through the players, and then the coaches filter it based upon this may or may not be. Okay, how often is the top 10 out of your 10-80-10? How often are they captains? That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Where does it come? How often does it come from the bottom 10?
Not often.
Not often.
Not
So
often.
it's coming out of the middle.
Yeah. Think about your blue collar kid.
Yeah.
The kid that just shuts his mouth every day, says "Morning, coach," and then goes as hard as he can every single drill, and doesn't complain, doesn't moan and groan about it, and just has this driven mindset like, okay, I'm going to do what they tell me to do.
So these coaches or these players are essentially voting for work ethic.
All encompassing. The best thing about the players is they know what their teammates are doing. They know how they are in the locker room. They know their motives. They see through all the smoke. And so when you say, okay, make your vote your top 3, and then you start to figure out who people believe in, right? Because your job is to develop leaders, right? And then once you get those leaders, right, your job is to develop those leaders. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden we go through winter, we go through spring ball, all of a sudden we got 10 people that could be somebody special to this program that could help lead, right? You dive into those 10 more because they're going to make those 10 are going to trickle down to everybody else. So you attack your leaders. So you therefore drive those behaviors into them, reinforcing your culture, and then that drives that production. So it's a crazy system, but it's very, very simple in nature.
No, it's a basic system of, it's a hierarchy system, to where you instill, you're going to take the people who are going to be the more receptive to what you're offering as far as leadership, character development, and so forth. They're into it. Let's put it that way. They're really into it. That's why they're being voted captain, because they're really into it, with the exception of everybody makes mistakes here and there. So everybody's going to take some losses here and there. So they're going to buy in, immediately. And then the best way to instill and teach or to learn is to teach.
Absolutely.
So your leaders become better leaders by making other people leaders. It's just, if I teach somebody how to squat and they become very proficient at squatting, and I want them to be able to teach other people how to squat. As soon as they can start teaching other people how to squat, guess what happens to their own squat? It goes through the roof, because now they become more self-aware. They start double checking. Anytime they double check everything, so from a global perspective, what I'm hearing from you is they get into that position, all right? So they have this standard, and now they're responsible for coaching the standard. Now they're double checking themselves every time they open their mouth in regards to, am I meeting the standard because I'm the standard?
They're policing themselves.
Yes.
And that's the cool thing. I was talking to Goodwin about this. He came out for our Ohio State clinic, and my topic was geared toward all these high school strength coaches. And I love high school strength coaches. I think they're probably the most important strength coach we got.
Yes.
So I put together a presentation to where it was going to challenge the coach, right? So within our Shoemaker complex, we have our Gene Smith weight room. So my idea was to create a training session, right? I took athletic tape. I taped off it was like 3 racks. It was small weight room, right? Because what do high school strength coaches have? Not a lot of resources, right? So I taped off a fake perimeter of a weight room inside our weight room, and I trained our interns, right? So the ability to operate with less. So all of a sudden you have to get very, very creative. And so how do you structure a program like that? How do you do more with less? And Jim had a lot of great points, like teach it simple, be simple. And sometimes we just get too caught up in what we're seeing outside of our realm, and we get caught up on social media or who's doing this and who's doing that. It goes back to driving who you are, what you believe in, and going from there. And so keeping it simple, allowing you to drive the ability to meet players where they're at and not overcomplicate things. So high school strength coaches, I tip my hat to you. You guys are probably the most important people, and your ability to do it right. And I love when people come out to learn, because it's an opportunity to grow, and you can't hide it. You know some of the best strength coaches. There's Coach McKenna out in New Jersey, does a phenomenal job with Notre Dame High School. Brian Clark was one of the best I've seen do it with a large group. And Eric Cash. Eric Cash is a great high school strength coach. So for all you listeners out there, reach out to all these strength coaches. Like, you obviously use Elite FTS to drive your knowledge, but what is it? Like, it goes back to what Buddy said. If you limit your knowledge, right, you limit the development of your athletes. So drive knowledge into yourself. Understand that you got to meet these players and athletes where they're at. Don't overcomplicate it. There's a system in place, and the system is based on what you believe in. So if you don't know what you believe in, you need to get back to the drawing board. So it's one of those things that high school strength coaches, I give you a lot of credit.
Yeah, I've always felt that, my experience in collegiate strength and conditioning is one internship and a lot of conversations with coaches. So it's not very high. High school, a few years after I was out in high school, kind of working with that, but I'm not even going to count that. That was just, I was the strongest kid showing other people how to lift weights. But what I do know about coaching and athletes is coaches, every athlete that I know, almost every person I know that's ever played athletics, had a coach that did something or said something that made a significant difference in their life. I think that the older, and this is what we're going to talk about because I don't know the answer to this, I've always felt high school is like the last chance opportunity to be able to really do that, because values are developed so young that the junior high coach is really the biggest difference maker, the biggest opportunity to be able to really pivot, and change the trajectory of somebody's life is really probably there from an athletic standpoint. High school, it's still there. College, I guess it's going to depend upon, division. I mean, you're top division. Is it still there? Or
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so it is. You still have the opportunity to change some of these kids. I mean, obviously, let's set the obvious aside. They're great football players. They play in the NFL. They become a multimillionaire, and they blow all the money in 3 years. All right, let's set that aside. Okay, let's put the football just aside. We're talking character, value development, just being a good person, making a difference in the world. It's still, they're not past that. You would not say that
they're still learning.
So it's a bell curve,
Absolutely,
so where would you think high school is starting to fall down that curve? I mean, it's just talking. I mean, I don't have any stats or anything where for me, I think junior high is like the peak of the curve. I really do. High school, well, they kind of merge together, in a lot of schools.
Yeah, there's still a lot of growth with those age groups. I mean, it's so, you watch athletes move, you watch young kids move, like they don't have what they used to have, because we talk about it all the time. You see kids stuck in front of the TV or kids with these awful postures, right? Where are they getting it from? Because this thing right there, right? So it's like, what are we driving? And, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? I would probably say it's getting worse.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why it's like across the country, like what's the youth doing? What are we driving? So it's a challenge, because the kids that we have come in to Ohio State, you're like, oh, they're a genetic freak. They probably train every single day. We got a freshman right now. I call him Big Baby. So Big Baby, he's big.
Yeah, I get that.
About 6'8", 383. There's a gentleman that used to play back in the day. You might have known him, Orlando Pace.
Yeah.
Yeah. This Big Baby could be. So what I'm trying to love that kid up, right? His training age is rock bottom. And that's the thing, like, you're going to see that across all boards. Like, it doesn't matter, like, Ohio State, football recruit, he never lifted weights. And that's what he was used to. So guess what? He's going to lift weights. He's going to run. He's going to train. And so now it's just educating on him. So understanding that we're not attacking him, we're attacking his behaviors. And so...
Do you make that clear?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And it's got to come from the coach. It's got to come from the head coach. And, Coach Mick does a great job of establishing, like, what's our expectations of us coaching you. We're going to coach you extremely hard. Don't take it personal, okay? And we get so much feedback that you as that coach. So right now my approach with him is just keeping it simple. I was just talking to Jim about an RDL. I got to teach Big Baby how to do an RDL. He don't know how to do one. So I'm teaching him how to put his hands on his thighs and trying to hinge from the hips. I'm trying to meet him where he's at. But the other 3 guys that I have in that group, they're all linemen, and their training age is pretty high. The one is through the roof, and they're, most of their gains are going to be neural, right, in nature. Yeah. So coordination, like, okay, now all of a sudden we're seeing front squat numbers go up, and even Big Baby, his numbers are going up.
Go way up. Everything's going to go way up.
Way up. But understanding, I got to meet him where he's at. So we did a step up the other day. Knee was wobbly. He couldn't control the eccentric. Right? I just had him do body weight. The other guys have 25-pound plates. It's our freshmen. It's a part of our ooze program. We're going to ooze them into the program, and we got to teach them the basics. We're going to go at an appropriate rate for these guys, and we're not going to just throw them in the fire. Right? We're going to teach them our program, teach them the fundamentals, and understand that all these players, like, I know I can see it in his face, he's getting discouraged. He just shakes his head and he mumbles and he speaks underneath his breath at himself, not at me. Because if he's speaking at me, I'm going to have another conversation and I'm going to pull some people in and be like, his mindset's wrong, but he's discouraged at himself because he can't get it.
But you like to see that, right?
I love to see that.
Yes.
I love to see that. And I know he's getting frustrated, but that's the thing, is like he's getting upset because he sees the other freshman with 25-pound plates and he's going body weight. And that's the unique thing about it, is no matter where one is, I got to meet him there. And I got to give him some basic cues. We're going to get there. I'm not going to lose my mind over it. I'm not going to pull my hair out. But it's my job. I got to coach the hard ones. And he's a hard one. Mm-hmm. But I know what he's capable of because I see it, right? So he's not weight room strong. He's not weight room strong at all, right? We did our 225 test. We saw where he was at. But Dave, when I tell you I saw him do position work, he played basketball, right? He's nimble, right? He's 6'8" and nimble, and he can move. And he's got some explosive hands. So obviously we hit the difference, right? He about broke the damn thing. So I know he's got this great athletic base and ability to apply force. He's just raw. He's raw. But what am I going to do? Get mad at him because he can't do 25s?
No, man. He's what you want. He's what you want. He's the perfect recruit, as long as he can be coached.
Yeah, as long as he cares. We
6'8", 380, untrained,
and his body fat's like 30%. 30% for that kind of weight. So, You know what? I got to love the kid up. I got to meet him where he's at, and that's my job to coach him. Not the other 3 are. I'm still going to coach the dog crap out of them, but
your other 3 are going to be more beast. You know what I'm saying? And that's going to rub off on him.
Mm-hmm. He sees it. He feels it.
He's going to see it
because he's got one of the best things about this is we tell our players to coach each other.
Yeah.
So you'll hear all of our staff, coach them, right? I mean, it's just like for you guys, like, JL went into it. Him and I have great conversations all the time, and it's like, you know how to coach up a box squat, you know how to do a box squat, but you're going to coach your partner through that entire lift with every cue that you know how to use, right? And that cue for you might have to say it 10 more times for you and only 5 times for him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So
or change it.
If it's not working, you got to change it, and you have to adapt to it. So you see these young freshmen, I'm like, coach them, because sometimes he turns me down, right? He's getting frustrated. He turns me down, and so I got to get back into his face. I got to look up at him because he's like, I got to come down here so I can speak to you. And then his partner coaches him, and so all of a sudden we're getting players coaching players, reinforcing our culture on how they've been taught. So before the freshmen even got here, I'm yelling at them during dynamic warm-up. Coach is yelling at them. Everyone's yelling at them. Because we're talking like, hey, freshmen are coming. Freshmen are coming. You got to be able to teach them. You have to be able to teach them. And that's the cool thing about our program is that you see so many players come in and all of a sudden they go like this. downhill a little bit, and then the freshmen get here, and all of a sudden, it's like a nasty J curve, right? Just give it time. They have to go through it. No matter how hard you coach them, they kind of just have to go along this journey themselves. You know, they tune people out. All of a sudden, you know, you're foggy. You don't understand kind of where you are in time and space. You know, you can make every excuse why you were late or why you didn't make weight, or, you know, why you were late to class or this or that. And then all of a sudden you see things start to really align for these kids. Like, great conversation with one of our DBs the other day. We're like, hey, man, like you were cloudy, man. You were foggy. Like, you didn't accept coaching. You thought everyone was out to get you. You thought that you were being attacked personally when you were getting coached. And he had a lot of personal problems going on in his life at the time. And then all of a sudden, like, I literally talked to him today about it. I said, I'm proud of you, man. Like, he's like, I was at home, and I was talking with one of my friends. He's like, literally just something just squeezed me, right? He like just shook it off, and like something just like left him, right? So he has the ability to understand that, like wow, I'm no longer who I was. And now, like, you can coach the dog crap out of him, right? We can coach him like, hey, go do that. It's 10 more pounds than what you did last week. I got it, coach. Don't worry about it. I got it. And all of a sudden he's like, hey, the other day he grabbed me. He's like, I got to talk to him. Can I go talk to him? Because he was training with one of our other coaches. I was like, why? What's up? He's like, I don't like his face. I was like, what do you mean you don't like his face? He's like, no, it's not working. Something's up. And like, obviously the one kid that he was referring to, awful lift, didn't hit his number in squat that I called out for him. It wasn't to depth, so guess what? You're not going to do it right. I'm not going to keep loading the bar, right? So all of a sudden he pulls him aside. So I got a player. So I have a conversation with the player. I got another player from across the room that saw behavior from one of his teammates and came to the coach and said, hey, can I talk to him? So now you got players policing players on their demeanor. You know what I mean? So like, this thing is a whole nother level because of the buy-in from the player. The belief is there, and the belief is set, and the buy-in is huge. And that's the only thing that I can really preach to all these listeners right now is like, you got to be rock solid in what you believe in. Be rock solid in what you believe in, and then you get buy-in, right? So it's the ability to have the right people around the table. So if you're operating your business or operating your house, right? You're all leaders in your own house. What do you guys believe in within those doors, right? And does everyone believe that? And they don't, you got to have a conversation about it, right? Because, like, you know, it's just one of those things where we're going there with or without you. Now, if it's a family member, it's a different conversation, right? Yeah, you got to coach up your family on where you're going as a family. But these players, they're highly coachable, and they sniff things out better than us sometimes. And so I give them props for that because a lot of kids have stepped up.
How are they coached to, I don't know if the word's ignore, how are they coached to, ignore the media? You know, because social media is a big part. I mean, these guys are, you know, some of them are become famous, I guess you could say. You know, in their mind, they're all famous. The world
we live in,
you know, because, you know, they got recruited to Ohio State, they're instantly famous. So there's social media, there's all these other outlets that you can't control them 24/7. Yeah. So you may have rules against them being able to post or whatever. I don't know what those are. I'm sure they're across the board for Ohio State and the athletes, but they're still going to be able to read. All right. So, and they're going to read the good, they're going to read the bad. So how do those meetings, conversations go in regards to that?
We just tell them to be mindful. You know, you're creating your brand, and we do a great job with branding. So our players create their brand as soon as they walk in, and that's one of the things that we put in their action plans. All right, so you have your social media, and if you want to really operate on that social media, what are you going to put on there? You're going to put things that's going to embarrass yourself in the program. So our player development staff does a great job of educating on social media, but you hear it all the time. You see college football where a kicker misses a field goal and all of a sudden he gets a million tweets at him and all these DMs, and they're pretty nasty. But that's your choice to be on social media, and obviously you have to be able to filter. You have to filter out a lot. So for players like, J.K. Dobbins, J.T. Barrett, because he went through it, right? And I really admire J.T. because he's a phenomenal leader, and he was so balanced in who he was, and he wasn't a super rah-rah guy. But when the game was on the line, or when there was a defining moment in the program or in a training session, because he would speak up. When he felt the vibe of a room going astray and Coach Mick didn't like it, JT would, I got it. And he would literally, we'd stop the music for JT and he would address the group. Or we were outside and we put our players, we train them. And I know this goes into some of the questions that I saw come up on Instagram about the mental training aspect, right? So JT did a phenomenal job of diving into, like, okay, the event happened, right? His response was to speak up, to grab the attention of his peers, and then we went, and that was the outcome. So I give him so much respect because he was a phenomenal leader. Now, was he the most talented? No, but he was a heck of a leader, one of the best I've ever seen.
Okay. Because I'm going back to when we were talking about poor hip mobility, the kids lazy and all this kind of stuff, and it's the video games and all this other kind of stuff. Have you found, and I've often wondered this, do you have drills or tests for visual acuity when the players come in?
We have a screening process that we put them through. It's getting more intensive. But to say that we have visual cues, as you speak of.
Well, visual acuity, just their ability to be able to increase their vision field. Usually that's going to be kind of predetermined by the time they get to you. Like a quarterback can take in the whole field, where a lineman can take in just like this much. Yeah. Where a linebacker can see everything that's kind of happening with that. Typically, the visual acuity, the ability to do that, is taught at a really young age. All right, where I've often wondered if the video games, the bigger screen TVs, taking in a lot of shit going on at one time, is actually, while it's not, it's decreasing hip mobility and other physical attributes. Is it increasing their vision, that visual acuity, to where now, the ability for a kid that may not have been able to be a linebacker, because you got to take a lot of stuff in. Quarterback probably has to take in more than anybody else, at one field of vision, but like I said, you may be at a level where the position's already developed. It's not like, you see what I'm saying? It's probably a better question geared more towards, the high school kids, but I'm trying to look at potential positives of what they're doing, because it's processing an insane amount of information with some of these games. At one time. Which does that carry over to the decision making on the field? So in other words, let's say you have 3 quarterbacks and they all have the same physical attributes. Is the one who's better at playing video games better than the other 2? Interesting question. Makes you wonder. Because the decision making is rapid, it's faster, you see what I'm saying? So it's
the acuity piece is for each individual, right? So it's like the game moves fast, and you see our freshmen, they're just trying to keep their head above water. But for some of our older players, like, they get it now. All of a sudden, it's muscle memory, it's repetition. All of a sudden, they can actually take a step back and see things from a different perspective. And all of a sudden the game is a lot smoother for them. So, you know, the whole aspect of that question is, I believe it comes with time. Like they're gifted now. Like you'll see them and they'll process a lot, but it's just like a quarterback going through his reads. It might be a hair too slow, or they're not setting their feet right, and it's just muscle memory and getting those repetitions down, because we watch so much film and our players do a great job. They have their iPads and it's loaded, so they're watching film at home, and they're getting all these. It's what we call game reps and mental reps. So right, they're getting the game reps and the mental reps. So like when they're not in, they're visually watching that person in that position, their position, execute a repetition, and put that rep in the bank essentially. So it's like you did it mentally. But it's really cool to see how fast some kids learn that, and they see it differently, and it goes. The learning curve for some athletes is way faster than others, right? So you'll have a corner come in, and all of a sudden we're running summer 7-on-7. All of a sudden you see it click for him because he's in his second summer, right? I just saw it the other day, like, wow, he really put that together, but he had to go through that because the game is so much faster here.
Yeah.
And for high school kids, it's just like, what are you seeing first and then reacting to it? And then our process goes a little bit faster than that. So I give our guys credit. They're very, very quick because our scheme is simple in nature, but allows them to play fast.
Yeah, football's an interesting game to watch on the sidelines. You stand on the sidelines. I've been fortunate to stand on the sidelines of watch a high school game, played high school, but just to watch. Stand on the sidelines, watch a high school game.
Yeah,
you can talk to your buddy. You can do that at the Division I. Do it at Ohio State.
Yeah,
right. You're stepping back pretty. It moves quick.
Yeah,
right. Doing the NFL, you ain't standing on the sidelines no more.
Yeah,
you know, it's like I'm going up there, man. Because every next step, the speed is freaking insane. And I don't know if the listeners who don't follow football or really understand football really get it. You know, it's an insane difference in speed that it's unbelievable to actually see. You know, it's like, what the hell? I'm sure when you go and stand on the sidelines of an NFL field, you're like, holy cow. But you're seeing some of it. Yeah. Like, 'cause some of those players are on your field. 20% of the players in the big games that you're playing that's where they're going to end up. But the other 80% are slowing the game down. Now, when they get the NFL, those 80%, they're not there. It's like, what the hell just happened? How did that? I remember the first one I went to was with me and Louie, and it was the Browns, and I forget who they were playing, but all I remember is I was standing too close to the friggin' sideline, and the play started, and it was at my feet. Oh yeah, it was a split second. They're like 30 yards away. Yeah, it was a running play. Like, how the fuck? And I looked at Louie. I'm like, we need to get the fuck out of here. I'm not blowing my knee out for any stupid football player. We need to help back. But that just amazed the shit out of me. And the other thing that amazed me with it, and I'm always amazed by this, even when I'm, visiting your guys. Thank you. Is the size of the players. You see them in the weight room. You're like, okay, they're normal kids. They're muscular. But for the most part, they're just normal big kids. They wouldn't really stand out that much if they were in a crowd. They're bigger dudes. They come out with their pads on.
Whole different ball game.
Oh my God! Not only that, but the look on the face. It's like they go from this normal, humble for most part, kid to like, okay, I think I'll just stand the hell over here for the next 60 minutes, and it's a different. That's their world. It's cool for me to see because the weight room's always kind of been my world. So they walk through the tunnel, they come out. This is their world. This is what they're there for.
It kind of goes back into your episode with JL. He talked about him training at Westside, and he's told me stories. And needless to say, he was a competitor, right?
Yes.
And so all of a sudden, you take that mentality, right? You put into a football player, somebody that has unbelievable amount of care, right? Because JL cared about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, you take these football players who are invested 110%, have done everything that the coaching staff has told them to do and more. And all of a sudden, you get them to do what they love. And then all of a sudden, they get to go into Ohio Stadium and do what they love. They've been prepared, right? We have the best coaches in the country, we have the best staff in the country. We gave them every single tool, so all of a sudden they can go play the game they love. And all of a sudden, you see them, and it's what Buddy talked about. It's like heightened emotional trauma. Like you see them flip the switch, and all of a sudden some are going, right. They're headbutting things, or they're getting in their zone, and then the ones that are calm, right. It's calm before the storm, and they all have their different approach. And that's the thing for these players. Like Mike Thomas, who was a wide receiver for us, he was elite at what he does, and that's why he's having such a great career with the Saints right now. Is I got to work with Mike because I was with the wide receiver corps my first 3 years, and Mike, we'd be in meetings, and I as performance liaison, I was in that meeting, so I knew their routines, I knew their pre-practice routines, I knew what they were eating for breakfast as they were coming in for practice. I knew what their daily schedule looked like from academics, and so Mike and I had a great routine, and so we'd do our biofreeze routine right before we hit the field. Before that, we were in the locker room. I made sure that we gave him a Nassau drink, right? So it's just like it's almost like a Gator Light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then rewind back again in the meeting room. He did like a foam roll routine, and when he was done with that, I stretched him every single day, and that was his routine. And that was something that was preached from Coach Myers, like you're only as good as your routine. So, just like for us, like before you prep for training, like what's your routine? What's your routine? What's your routine before your last set? What's that routine? Is you go into, okay, here's another potential for a PR. What's your routine going into that? And you hone in on that. And these players thrive on that. And they build such great routines that they're unbreakable. All of a sudden they go to the NFL and they're like, these coaches are like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And then all of a sudden they're like, no, this is what I've done. This is what I've been taught to do. And it's awesome to see players that have no routine. They don't know that they don't know. And all of a sudden they take these tools and these resources here at Ohio State and they flip them to their advantage. And all of a sudden success story after another, through the roof. And Mike did a phenomenal job of that. And he was a competitor.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down, competitor.
All right, let's play a story game here. Let's take you out of Ohio State, and we're going to put you in a high school setting for 1 month,
Okay.
right? There's no restrictions. The weight room has anything that you need.
Yeah.
Okay, you have you don't have problems with assistants. You got 3 or 4 assistants. They're compliant. They're going to do whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You got 1 month to change their football program.
Mm-hmm.
Off season, not during the season. What do you do? What's the first thing you do?
1, alignment with your staff, right? It goes into alignment, assignment, execution, right? You have to do an assessment, right? What are you stepping into? What has existed there? What tendencies? It's almost like you got to consult with the guy that was there before you. Like, hey, what am I stepping into? Is it a bee's nest? You got to talk to. You got to ask the right questions to the right people. I think that's one thing. One aspect, people they have this sense of entitlement and pride that they don't ask questions, right? So asking the right questions to the right people so I can assess the situation and get everything aligned from a coaching staff perspective. That way, when we're sitting around a table like this, and we have 4 strength coaches and then 9 coaches, right? Everyone understands where we're going. Assignment, everyone has a role. Everyone has a job and a role that they're going to play in this thing, and then executing that. So understanding that everyone's going to play a huge part, and the awesome thing is, like, You can't do this on your own. You can't. And so for you to take over something of that magnitude, and people are like, oh, it's just a high school. No, you're probably talking about what, 60 to 80 to 100 kids, all they're novice, right?
Mm-hmm. And they're growing. They got a hormone
and
all kinds of shit going on.
So you're talking about this situation, this scenario. How are you going to maximize it? You got 30 days. So you got to go to the drawing board right away. You got to check out what resources you have available, right? So you're going into a high school room and you got 8 racks and you got 60 kids. You got to start going into your flow, right? So it's safety, flow, prepare for any storm that might come up, and then you got to flow and manage it, right? So you got to put the right people in the right place, right? So your assistants, like, hey, I'm gonna run and organize this training session as such. This is our vision going into it. That way, between alignment, assignment, execution, you can knock things out. But it's a system where it's not over complex, and you have the ability to manage and prepare for those things that are going to happen. A kid's going to come and say, my back. What are you going to do with him? You still got to train him, right? You just got to modify what he's going through. Coach, my shoulder. So these are all just challenges that we face on a daily basis. So what's your go-to? You're just not going to train them? You're going to say, go see the trainers for 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden you got them for 1 week. So what'd you do with the kid? You know what I mean? So that situation is very unique in nature, but we all go through it, right? You get someone leaves and all of a sudden you get plugged in, next man up opportunity.
Well, you got 80 kids. That situation isn't exactly unique in nature, because there's going to be 10 of those different types of situations all at once. Mm-hmm. And that's probably a low number out of 80.
Yeah.
You're going to have it's managing chaos.
No doubt.
So that's kind of the root of, how with 4 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to make progress. You got to manage the chaos to be able to make the progress. Mm-hmm. So thus the dilemma, maybe not, falling back on your system, evaluate, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then implement. When you're implementing, how do you manage that chaos and still move forward? Mm-hmm. So that would be the question.
Yeah.
Is, do you take it on, or do you delegate it to the assistants to take it on?
It happens at all levels.
Yes.
Right. So it's one of the things that we do on a daily basis, right? Coach Mick has his job and his role, and right, what's our job and our role within the system? It's actually an assignment I gave our interns a few weeks ago, right? So I actually got it right here, because I wanted to prepare some good stuff, good content, right? So it's a question that's come up with our staff as of lately, because it's one of those things where, like, we asked the starting kicker, like, hey, what's your job? What do you think he said?
Kick.
Everything but. So he's like, I need to be a leader, protect the specialist group and, help the young guys develop. No. Your job is to make field goals. You know what I mean? Or do kickoffs. Mm-hmm. So I have this assignment. It was pretty cool. I actually, so if you, for the listeners that are listening right now, if you got a text from me, right, the majority of strength coaches, like, I texted probably 20 people a couple of weeks ago. I said, what's your job and what's your role? Mm-hmm. What do you think I got back? All strength coaches, college and professional. What do you think I got back?
From what's your job and what's your role?
Yeah, what's your job and what's your role?
Make people stronger.
Yeah.
Or avoid getting them hurt.
Yep.
One of the two. Probably avoid getting them hurt.
Yeah. I got answers all across the board. Really good ones, and like typical meathead type strength coach answers, like, train dudes really, really hard. That's my job. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I got to give a shout out to everyone that answered that question. But this was one of the things, because I'm a deep thinker, and I'll write things down, throw it away, rewrite it, don't like it, throw it away, rewrite it. So this is what I kind of came up with, what's your job, right? So it's by nature, right, it's a paid position or, regular employment if you want to look it up. But your job is the responsibilities that are listed on documentation, right? So it's, Dave Tate, owner of EliteFts. It involves how greater authority views your position and ownership within your walls. Your job can and will be replaced by someone in the future. The inability to do your job could result in dismissal, loss of involvement, and destruction of trust, right? So like, that says some things clear for people, right? What's your job? Okay, that's what I am on paper. But what's your role? This is where it gets really, really cool, right? So you look up the definition of role, the part played by a person in a particular situation, right? So your role is what makes you unique from every other individual that would pursue your position. It is your ability to support and reinforce the values, standards, and positively influence the people within. It's what separates you from others and shows your true value when subtracted from the equation. Your intangibles. You make and create your own value. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
So like you're talking about winning with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like the people that you hire, the people that you surround yourself with, the people that you're overtaking this high school, you got to have the right people in the game with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why these relationships are so important. But it's also clarity, right? It gives clarity on what your job is and what your role is, and then you think about what we're going through. Like we just got a new head coach, right? Same job. What's his role going to be? However he wants that role to fit based on who he is, right? Coach Maratti's job, and what's his role? And he's highly consistent. It's almost to the point where he's strategically consistent at what he does. And that's the thing that us as strength coaches, like the profession is going astray, right? You see things on ESPN. You see things coming up on the Big Ten network. All of a sudden, coaches are waving towels and hooting and hollering. All of a sudden, they're driving attention away from the players. Because at the end of the day, the most important people are those players. Mm-hmm. And so if you're pulling attention and the camera on you, you're not in it for the right reasons. Yeah. And so it goes back into what's your job and what's your role. If your job description is XYZ, but what's your role? It's who you are when you're subtracted from the equation, right? So it's all of a sudden you lost a coach. You're like, man, I don't know if I could practice anymore.
Yeah.
My coach ain't here.
Well, if you're subtracted from the equation and there's no difference or no drop, you got to wonder what your value, if you have a value.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
And that's irregardless of responsibilities, because responsibilities can be easily delegated from one person to another.
Absolutely.
Based upon vacations, time off, PTO.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It happens every day.
Yeah.
And basically no company is everybody always there every day. So responsibilities are being pinged around, a lot. Yeah. So I wanted to put that out there because typically they're going to say, roles, responsibilities. But responsibilities, as I said, can be delegated. The role, though.
The role is what makes you unique.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, like, hey, where's Coach so-and-so? Oh, he's been gone for 3 weeks. Oh, I didn't even notice.
See,
I didn't even notice. So what kind of value are you adding with your role? Like, and that's the one thing, these young strength coaches that want to get in the field. And, it's a process now. Like
but let's stay on the role here thing, because another component of that, if you take it, and it may even still be in strength and conditioning, is with every, what did you say the first part was, the job or employment? Job?
Your job.
Job. Okay. With every job is going to be compensation. That's part of the job. All right. So every year that can go up based upon, competitiveness. It can go on based upon, how well the company did, a cost of living increase, whatever it's going to be. Typically every year, unless the company's not doing real well, there's going to be some type of increase in compensation. Better years, better increases. You have to look at the value of your role as it applies to the compensation. Because let's say you stay with the same company. So let's say you stay at Ohio State for 10 years. So
Yeah.
let's say you can't, let's say your job is locked in, which
Yeah.
unfortunately, I'm sorry, it's not. Okay. It's just not. But let's say it was, and every year was X percent increase, right? Well, over 10 years, now all of a sudden looking at what you were hired in at compared to what you're being paid now. All right. If that role hasn't increased in value, whoever's in charge of that job could potentially hire 3 of you for the same price that they're paying you and get 3 times the outcome.
Your value better be through the roof.
Exactly.
Right? You better not fall off.
Your value's got to at least be worth what the compensation is, based upon that. Coaching gets a little bit different. I mean, coaching is a little weird in that dynamic,
does
though.
get fuzzy.
It gets a little fuzzy with that because now you're dealing with, like it's just like professional athletes. They get paid a shit ton of money, but sometimes it's really not about the money. It's just that this guy doesn't feel like he should be the 10th highest paid.
Yeah.
He feels better than that. He wants to be the 5th highest paid. So, I mean, it's just crazy shit like that. But so I wanted to put that in there from a value standpoint because when I speak to other entrepreneurs that have staff and employees that they have to manage, after 5-10 years, they have conversations with me like, I can hire 2 of these people now.
Yeah.
For they haven't increased their skill set, and now their people are graduating at a higher skill set than what this person has. I can get 2 of them.
Yeah.
And so the role thing, I think people need to really put a lot of thought into that because there are those intangibles that even if the skill set isn't really there, it's like, oh shit, if that person left, who the fuck's going to do this? Like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, but who's going to do this?
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, now I got to hire 2 people.
No
and that's what you'd want to build is, can that value be worth, if you had to leave, all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, now I need 2 different people to do this one guy's job.
And it kind of shows you, like, we talk about this is a great exercise. We had the offensive line kind of dive into it in one of our breakout sessions. It's like, what's the difference between average and elite, right? So we started naming people, and they're like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, everybody. What are some characteristics of them? What makes them elite? What makes you average? So it goes into the idea of, like, all these professionals, right? They're elite at what they do, right? So, but what about the lady at the grocery store? What makes her elite? Like, some weird stuff, like the weird conversations. So we have, we're very fortunate. You went upstairs. We got state-of-the-art dining facility, right? And, we have employees that work there that are feeding our players. And, they help. They're hired from our company to come in and to work and do a job, right? But there's one lady that always stands out. Her name is Miss Julie. And what do you think? Why is Miss Julie different? Because she takes her role and takes it to a whole nother level. She loves up every single one of our players, asks them how they're doing. She goes above and beyond what her job tells her to do. So all of a sudden, Miss Julie's not there right now. She's not there anymore. So all of a sudden, like, everyone's like, man, where's Miss Julie? Like, the day that didn't show up for the first time. Because they found out that her role, that what she did, because she literally talked to every single player. She talked to every single staff member. And why is that important? She was elite at what she did, but her role, when we subtracted her from the equation, people missed her. People are missing her. So regardless what your job is, it's about how you own that job and you implement it through your own vision of what your role should be. So when it's your time is done, when you're subtracted from the equation, what value did you really add? Did you add any? Do people know that you're gone?
Well, all roles can have a significant difference, and I think that you just pointed that out. They all can when they're done to the exceptional level, of caring, you know, and wanting to make a difference.
Mm-hmm. And so I think for these young strength coaches, because we harp on it a lot, right? Everyone's all geeked up, and it's like, what's your goals? We have them all write down their goals, and they meet with one of our strength coaches. And this can be one of my rants right now.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my responsibilities right now is the internship program. And Coach looked at me and he said, I want it to be the best. Well, why not? We're at Ohio State. Why wouldn't it be? Why shouldn't we strive for that? And it evolved. It was rough. It was rough at the beginning. So Coach took over the program in 2017. We got the right players in the game. We hired some staff, and we started making some changes. So we go through alignment, assignment, execution all over again, and then we get our staff aligned. We got coaches helping with the internship program. There's 2 of us at the time. And then Coach Mick says, you know what, I'm going to blow this up again. So I'm looking at him like, you're going to blow this thing up again? And so he's like, yeah, I want more people involved. So he's like, I want 7, 8, 9 full-time of our strength coaches involved with this internship program. So at first I'm like, how am I going to do this? And so, you know what, went back to the drawing board, assessed it, alignment, assignment, execution, and all of a sudden we got the right players in the game, and all of a sudden we expanded our internship program. We had 16 interns right now. And all of a sudden they cover all of our facilities. And so we have our site supervisors who do a phenomenal job of just owning that facility, right? So we have the ability to reinforce what our vision is and drive this system into place through the right people. And right now our staff is unreal. I just left we had our CEP meeting, so it's our continued education program, and we have 2 strength coaches involved in that. And they do a phenomenal job. Unreal. And I could show you a picture right now. I wish that we could pull this up, but right now they're doing program approvals for hockey, right? So this is what it looked like. So you're talking about these young strength coaches now presenting. It's like we put a sport analysis on the board, and we start chalking it up. Write an in-season program or off-season program. Write your macro cycle. Show us how you're going to run percentages and what you believe in, right? So that picture right there is a classroom, and there's 20 people in there helping these interns. And the thing is, where this profession is going, you see a lot of young coaches just get into it for the hype of it all. Oh yeah, I want to be a strength coach. I want to be. I can go to Ohio State and intern, and I want to be a Power 5 head strength coach. Those are your goals, right? So it's like we got to get the right people in the profession, because everyone blames and complains about the profession, right? We don't have a lot of good coaches anymore. We're overpopulated in the profession. We're running wild with all these people trying to be coaches, and all of a sudden the integrity of our profession goes out the window because we just keep getting coaches and there's no standard set, right? So all of a sudden, what's the solution, right? Everyone complains about this or that, like that's not going to work here. That's our profession is going down the drain, and then hard times and where we're going as coaches and what you believe in. So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit there and complain about it, or are you going to are you actually going to come up with a solution? So this is our solution. Mm-hmm. We're controlling our 20 square feet, and we're diving into what we believe in, right? We believe in developing that next generation elite strength coach. So what's that entail? You should see these guys' hour log, their work log of coaching on the floor, right? That's what we want them to do, is get exposure, all their meeting times, all their projects on the side. This is a full-blown internship to where you're basically treated like an assistant. And that's what we feel that's what we need to drive in this profession, right? So it's like, who's going to be here when you're gone? Who's going to be here when I'm gone? What are we putting in the field? It's like, it's what you used to say with the live, learn, and pass on, right? So it's like, what are you putting in the field now? Or what kind of product? Are you putting average coaches out? Because that's going to really help the field. That's going to help the profession. So our mentality right now is all hands on deck, and we're helping develop these next generation of coaches. And we don't want them to be average coaches by any means. We sat there in our meeting this morning at 5:15, and our site supervisor, Coach Nico, is grilling our interns. Good, and it's uncomfortable conversation. You know, we coached them up. We evaluate them every single day. So when they're on the floor, they get evaluated, and we have a system for that. And it gives them clear, honest feedback. It goes back into clarity, content, and conviction, right? We got to coach these young coaches up on what they're actually doing. And so it goes back into this realm of unconscious incompetent. You got to meet people where they're at. So I'm meeting players where they're at, I'm meeting interns where they're at, and I'm meeting full-time staff where they're at. And it's a unique system, but it's beautiful. I'm telling you, I'm super proud to be where I'm at right now and what we have going on within our walls, because a lot of people don't know, and that's fine.
Yeah. I like what you're saying here, because yesterday I had them strip a clip from when Rhodes was out here with Jim.
Yeah.
You know, he made a statement about being taken seriously.
Uh-huh.
You know, like
yes.
you know,
with
so,
administrators.
Yep. So we took that, posted it as its own clip last night, because I knew we were going to be speaking about this.
Yeah.
And I knew that this is something that Ohio State takes seriously, and something that you guys take seriously, is to basically Matt's statement. I know I'm gonna mess this up. Was, you know, if you want to avoid being treated as support staff and actually be at the table, you know, with you know, having the discussion of what's going to be done, what's going to be moved forward, being taken seriously, you know, you have to present yourself professionally. You know, it's just the nature of how it is. You know, I'm a meathead, you know, I'm a meathead at heart, right?
Yeah.
I would have a very hard time, you know, being in that type of environment if I had to do it full time.
Yeah.
You know, it would drive me insane. But I haven't used profanity once during this whole table talk, right?
There's a couple that slipped, but it's okay.
Maybe a couple that slipped, but nothing that's overwhelming towards what typically would be. And there's we had a conversation beforehand, for those that don't know, that, you know, he's not going to sit here and throw profanity out, which I wouldn't expect him to do, you know, like if we were at dinner. So I said, you know what, I'm not going to either. You know, so that was just something that I said to put out there. And I'm putting this out here now just to kind of state that you can adapt to whatever environment it is. And if you're around people that are holding those standards, say I was to go into your system as an assistant or an intern or whatever it was, I would be able to adapt to those standards if I liked them or didn't like them. If I didn't like them, I wouldn't go in, or I would leave. There's always that choice. I don't think people understand they always have that choice.
They always.
If you don't have that, you know, you can leave, or you can just adapt to what those standards are. And then when you adapt to them, it's not that hard of a thing to do. You know, you just fall in line, find your role, and master it. You know, master it. I mean, just maximize the crap out of that, because nobody can ever, people can steal your business, they can steal your idea, they can steal your program, they can steal your text, they can steal your slideshow, they can steal everything except you. You know what I'm saying? They can't steal you. You know, and just like you said with, what was her name?
Miss Julie,
right?
Right. We're talking about a lunch lady.
A lunch lady, right? She's missed. You know, and she's going to be missed for a while, you know, until sometime somebody else is going to step up. You know, it could be, you know, Mr. Joe. You know, who knows who it's going to be, but it's going to be somebody.
There's somebody that's trying to step up right now, and she's doing a great job, and she sees that opportunity. But you mentioned something about you know, adapting, right? So adapting to, you know, this conversation, right? Because you know, we talked about it beforehand, but adaptability is huge, and right. So like, you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang around most. So who are the 5 people that you hang around most? Right? So you eventually become like them, right? So who would your top 5 be?
Well, it's my family,
right?
You know, so that's essentially it.
So you are who you surround yourself with.
So then my very close friends, you know, which are tight, you know, people that I've known for a long time, and that's it. But what I throw in with that statement, because that statement always kind of irks me just a little bit because I think the reason it irks me so much is it's typically made by wannabe millionaires to try to create other millionaires. It's like, hey, if you want to be super successful, you are who you surround yourself with. I'm like, okay, but at the same time, don't forget where you came from.
No doubt.
So while you're trying to build your tree and you're trying to build your network of those people that you want to surround yourself with, who you reaching down and pulling up?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because they're pulling you up.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're trying to climb your way into this network of people that you want to be like, somebody's extending their hand. All right. Are you doing the same?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, then you might want to rethink that whole statement because, a lot of times people get to a certain position, they get to a certain point, they forget where they come from. Yeah. I always have a problem with that, because there's people that need help. Yeah. That just need a little boost.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they take off.
Yeah. And then the flip side, our perspective, we say it all the time, like, are you a competitor, right? Are you an elite competitor? And that's where we kind of said, like, hey, who are the 5 people that you surround yourself with? Because that's who you're going to end up being. So, like, in our setting for our players, like, okay, you're hanging out with this guy who's doing XYZ after midnight, and this guy who's even worse, and this guy who's even worse. So, and they're your friends.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, like, surround yourself. No. You're going to go with this guy who's the captain.
Yes.
And you start hanging out with him more. So we use that in that sense of you're the sum of the 5 people that you're around most. So it's like our players are really tight knit. So there's not, obviously the scenario like the millionaire. Yeah. But our players are like they're in a state that where they can be molded.
Yes.
Right now. So all of a sudden they have one bad influence. It could be an uncle, it could be a grandfather, and all of a sudden, like, hey man, you should be starting. All of a sudden, like, every night, sure enough, hey, I'm talking to my uncle, and all of a sudden he's one of the 5 people, right? All of a sudden that 1/5 has influence on his mindset. Then that triggers his behavior.
Yeah, and usually those negative people, it's negative behaviors from those people. I don't think there's good, I don't think there's bad people. There's people that do bad things. Yeah. They're really not their friends.
Right.
They're not really acting out of that person's real best interest.
Absolutely.
That's why I say the older that I've gotten, the more that I've realized the difference between peers, associates, and friends.
No doubt.
The older you get, the more you realize there's very few people that are really tight friends, and now that's not to say that there'll be no new ones. You should always be striving to have new ones, because we're human, that's we need that. I don't believe in this lonership mentality.
Oh, absolutely.
You need people to thrive and survive and push you and
no doubt. It's
challenge you.
It is. And it's exactly that. When I got here in January 14, I was in touch with Todd Hammer, right? So Hammer reaches out and he says, hey, Toos, you need to go talk to JL. And so sure enough, what happened, me and the big fella get breakfast one day, and then all of a sudden it goes from there. And I owe him a lot of credit because we've had a lot of great conversations to the point where it's like, I'm diving into like some of my coach's manual with him, and he's asking the right questions to me. Meanwhile, I'm like, we're just BSing. It's like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And all of a sudden, he's coming to my wedding. Yeah. That's how he's done above and beyond. Like, he's reached out to me like, hey, we need to go get dinner. We need to go. Hey, come over see Shell. Come see the kids. Or like, hey, Memorial Day, hey, come over. Because he knows I'm 3 hours from home. Yeah. Right? So he's like, absolutely. Why not? And so now this guy's made a huge impact on me by a simple behavior that he triggered on day one. Right? Then an event that I got a text, hey, you got to go hang out with JL Holdsworth. Like, I'm no, I'm good. I'm at Ohio State. I don't need to meet anybody, right? But no, that's the thing. It's
You do, though, because you need to get
Absolutely.
out of the environment every now and again.
And then if I didn't have him,
Especially you, my God.
oh yeah, and that's the thing. Like, there's so many people in this profession. All you got to do is reach out.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, 99% of them are going to reach back out to you.
Yeah.
You just got to do it the right way. It's not what you're doing. It's how you do it, right? So it's like, you get all these emails. Like, I got an email the other day from a potential intern candidate, and he's like, "I want to come shadow." Whoa.
Let's go here.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is a good one. Let's go here.
Right. So I revert back to an old school hammer strength clinic with Ken Manny, and right, he opens up, and he's got this polo tucked in, and he is on one, right? He looks at all the young strength coaches. He's like, "You've been in the profession for, I think it's like 8 years or less." He's like, "We don't owe you nothing." And like, he goes on a rant about these younger generation strength coaches. Like, you got to work. You got to become a doer. Stop living through this. Like, these weren't around back when he was doing his early hammer strength clinics. But he went on a rant. And he's like, "We don't owe you nothing. Like, if you really, truly want to be in this profession, you're going to find a way. You're going to find a way. And if you're going to be, guess what? Okay. If one person gives you an opportunity, you got to take it and run with it." And for me, right, this dives back into, Justice Gaelic, who I know you had speak multiple times, right? So, I got done playing, right? And Justice was my strength coach in college. And he was young at the time, and we respected him because of how he went about things, right?
He was really young. I mean, it was like boom, boom.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
and we got to see it. We got to experience it. But guess what? He had a bunch of followers, right? That we would have ran through a wall for him, right? I'm gonna see my groomsmen here in like 16 days, right? Some of the guys I played ball with, they're coming out, and we're all gonna talk about those days. We're gonna talk about the days when Coach Gaelic put us through one, or what we did in the powerhouse, because that's what we called it back then. But that was a moment, right, when I got done playing. That was one person, and I had one opportunity. I went back to my high school and started training kids, and I loved it. Rearranged the whole weight room. I had nothing. I had enough money to buy chocolate milks for kids right after the lift. So I pull it up in my car in a cooler, and we had trained, and it brought me so much peace, because I knew I found what I loved to do, and I was there. Right, I was at my high school, I was at my alma mater, and then all of a sudden I got one phone call from Justice. He said, "Hey, I got an internship opportunity." He's like, "It's awful. Do you want it?" I said, "I'll see you tomorrow at 4:30. I packed everything in my car. I drove 6 hours back to Philly, and I just figured it out from there. I spent 16 months doing an internship, and I didn't have any housing. But guess what? As an undergrad, I worked facilities. Right, so I had every combination to every locker room. So guess what I did? I just slept in a different locker room every night. I'd sleep in the weight room one night, right? So it's like, our weight room was underneath the stadium, and it was connected to the recycling center. And guess what? You're going to see all kinds of mess coming through that recycling center into our weight room, because it was connected.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, like, the night that I decided to have the blow up in the weight room office, oh yeah, we got roaches, we got mice, and all of a sudden you feel them crawling on you, and all of a sudden you're like, I am at the bottom of the bottom, and I couldn't be more happy.
Yeah.
So it's for these strength coaches, like, you got to find out that you're in it for the right reasons, right? If it doesn't go down to the fact that you're willing to help develop and serve somebody else, you got the wrong people. And JL actually helped me with this. He brought a book up, A Method for Hiring. I think it was Jeff Smart. But it helped me kind of dial in to, like, getting the right people in. Because I said it earlier, Woody Hayes said it, you win with people, and you got to get the right people in. You have to. You got to surround yourself with the right people, and if you don't know how to find the right people, you got to create a system to find the right people, because one bad seed could take down the whole kingdom, right? So it's like you keep searching. You ask the right questions to the right people. You ask them why they're doing this. Why are you getting in this profession? Why do you want to work for Dave Tate at Elite FTS? Why do you want to help be a strength coach at this high school? Why do you want to do this? And then keep asking why and keep asking why. And if the root answer to that question doesn't revolve around helping someone else, you got the wrong person. And it's clear as day.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to go out there and you keep recruiting, keep calling people. And that's what it's coming into. Like, I love the internship program. I got a lot of people helping me right now, and Coach Mick and Coach Mason do a phenomenal job of supporting it. And we're going to continue to drive this thing. And this is where everyone has to own their 20 square feet. I think this profession has a lot of upside to it. I mean, come on. I'm wearing a hoodie right now and athletic shorts.
Yeah.
And I get to work at one of the best institute university in the country. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And I get to go to work every single day, and I love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, where you're going, like, your journey's been, I don't even know the ins and outs of your journey completely, but I guarantee you had some great people along the way.
Oh, yes. Most definitely. Always. I would not be where I am.
Yeah.
If it was not for that.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't me.
Because you can't do it on your own.
No.
Not a shot.
No. Going back to the email, though.
Yeah.
Okay. The email of, hey, I'm going to be in town. Can I stop by and pick your brain? Right? How should those people go about that? Because I get the same thing. So multiple times, right? So you get the email, or then for me, it's a DM, something like that. And you're like, oh, God, you don't know this person.
Yeah.
I'm looking up like order history, like have they even supported us at all? It's like, I've been in business for 22 years.
You should have bought something by now.
Yeah, you should at least have a T-shirt.
Yeah.
We've sold ebooks for $5 for charity. There should be something. So rather than just sit there and just hack on these people for poor etiquette, what would be the path to try to get that conversation with the person that you would like to speak to?
I put some parameters on it. So I say, call me between 6 and 7 p.m. Right? So we find out how bad you want it. Or I'll say, hey, I'm available Wednesday from...
Well, you're answering it. Most of the time it's going to get deleted.
No doubt.
Let's assume you're acting like you're answering all of them, and you're not.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're being deleted. How do you get the even reply to that?
Yeah. So your avenue, your delivery is everything.
Yes.
Right. So if you're reaching out because you want to pursue an opportunity, your delivery is everything. You have to, obviously, when you're addressing anybody, it's like all these coaches around the country, and it's like, if you're going to address them by like, hey, Mickey, bad deal. Come on now. Are you serious? So obviously give them the common courtesy of like, Coach Marati, Coach Mick, I'm really like kind of dive into like your why. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm very passionate about this. This is where I see my future coming up. I want to learn, and just acknowledge where you're at, so you can understand that you have some humility in being like, I don't know that I don't know, and I appreciate any help in this process because I know that where I'm going, I'm going to need some guidance here. So all of a sudden, you kind of evaluate where you're at. You do the alignment, assignment, execution piece. You're like, who can I surround myself with? All right, I got to start reaching out to coaches, right? So it happens across the country. We just got back from our national conference, and everyone's going through the same thing. I got 10 emails here, 50 emails here, all these raw young strength coaches trying to get in the field. But if you truly, honestly want to get in this field for the right reasons, and you have a passion to be a collegiate strength coach, by all means, you got to do it the right way.
You just gave out a huge secret, and I almost don't even want to say what it is, because it's we're here to help people, right? Okay. All right. During the the answer, you were saying the two words came together: any help, right? So if somebody sends you a DM or an email, or anybody that's typically anybody that I know that's in the field that is passionate about the field, see those two words put together, can you offer any help?
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's going to elicit a response.
Yep.
All right. It may not be, yeah, stop by next Thursday. It may be, hey, check out this website, read this book, just stick with it. It depends. But usually those two words put together is going to elicit a response.
Mm-hmm.
You get the response, acknowledge the thank you, and then you start slowly building a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You do that enough times, over 6 months, 9 months, patience matters.
Oh my goodness.
You build this slow relationship that may be on Instagram, it may be on email, or whatever it's going to be. A year later, then you say, hey, look, I'm going to be coming through your area. You mind if I stop by?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
No doubt,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to be coming through the area. Actually, you shouldn't be coming through the area. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you don't want to come straight up and say, look, I want to come visit you. It's that type of thing. And I think that's one way.
Mm-hmm.
There's multiple ways, to be able to build a network, but you need to make yourself be seen, without being ignorant, arrogant, a waste of time. There's multiple ways, to be able to get in touch with anybody. The best number one way is to use your network. I can't think of any names right now, but say I didn't know who Buddy Morris was. All right, I know enough people. I'm going to ask around, does anybody know who Buddy Morris is?
Yeah.
All right, well, who's the person that I know that's closest to him? Hey, do you think that you can get me an opportunity to at least get an answer in email? Like, let him know, and I'm going to send him an email. There's just one thing I want to question. I got an answer.
That's all it takes.
And then you use that, and you take the door and you open it. So that's why you always need to work on building your network. I think that's being lost. Not your social network, because your followers aren't going to do shit for you.
No.
Your real life network is what's going to matter.
Yeah.
Do we want to go to questions? Do you have anything else that you wanted to cover before we hit questions that was you're super prepared for, that you think's important?
No, I had Rhodes on here. Rhodes did a heck of a job explaining. We talked about it. And it's like he dove into like administrators and understanding like our roles and what we're portraying to our administrators. All right, so it's like he said, we look like the kids, we act like the kids. Well, if you act like an idiot, then what are you portraying, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the ability to understand that you wear multiple hats. You do. Like when it's Dave and it's time to train, that's a different person, right? When it's time to handle your quarterly reviews or whatever you got, that's a different person, right? So the ability for professionals, because you are a professional. Everyone's a professional in some sense, and you got to be able to dial into these modes. And you just can't come off as a strength coach that's just that meathead persona. Like, you got to be able to sit down and have an educated conversation about a lot of issues, because guess what? You're probably going to be the solution.
Yeah, and the problem is it already comes with a stereotype. It comes with the same stereotype as a meathead.
Yeah.
And one of the best pieces of advice I was told by it's one of the persons I should have remembered the name but never did, because I was too arrogant, cocky, and egotistical at the time to care. Right out of high school, powerlifting, 240 pounds, jacked. And it was some reason my dad just had me sit down with the guy, but he ran one of the biggest manufacturing industries that was in town at the time. And his advice to me is, you need to understand, anytime you walk into a room, your physical presence demands attention. And as long as you always are going to look like this, it's going to demand attention. All right, so that's all on you. Now, what comes out your mouth is going to determine what they're going to think. And it kind of always stuck with me, like, okay, I got this, but it stuck with me kind of in a bad way too.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if I walk into a room and I want to be fucking, I just want to be left alone.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put the fucking scroll on, there's the curse.
Yeah.
I'm just, that's going into that's going into my antisocial mode. I'm gonna put the, it's just, I'm gonna put on the face, leave me alone, and stay away. And but I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying is to know that you're already walking into a stereotype. So, and it's not a really good one.
Yeah.
So as soon as you speak, you can change that perspective, not just for you, but the whole profession. Because
Absolutely.
whoever you're speaking to could very well may never have spoken to a strength coach before. This is true with powerlifters too, by the way, or any athlete. You may be speaking to somebody that's never spoke to a powerlifter before, but they're going to assume that you're a stupid meathead. As soon as you open your mouth and you have an intellectual conversation, that person walks away thinking powerlifters are intelligent people.
Oh yeah.
Because one person...
Stereotype kind of changed.
Yes, exactly. It's not a stereotype anymore. It's actually validation based upon one person, but it's still that person's validation, which will go on from there.
It kind of goes back into, so like now it's this next generation of coaches coming through, right? So obviously you have Coach Marotti, guys like Ken Manny, Chris Doyle, you got these baby boomers that are just killing it, right? They're crushing it. And then you got this next wave and then this next wave, and then I'm probably a part of that next wave. And it's like,
man, those guys you mentioned broke ceilings.
Right?
I mean, guys before them created the profession, right? Those guys broke some major ceilings.
And they've been doing such a phenomenal job at it too, and consistently at a high level. And then like, you give them credit for who they are and what they've done, but what they continue to do. And it goes into leadership styles, right? So like for these young coaches like they're not dialed into kind of what they believe in and who they are. So if you're a domineering leader, like you're dominant, you're like, it's this way, you're going to have compliant followers, right? Because like everyone's nervous to work around you, right? And it doesn't create a great environment for you to lead your other ones, because you don't. But the fact is that the matter is that you don't even know that you're a domineering leader, right? All of a sudden you got to get feedback, right? So you're a secretive leader, right? Knowledge is power. So you hold all this knowledge in, and you leave your staff in the dark or this and that, and all of a sudden you create these guarded followers, right? These guarded employees. Is that the right way to do it? Like, or are you the leader that's unpredictable? You know what I mean? You are not consistent whatsoever. All of a sudden, one day you're great. I love working for Dave, and all of a sudden the next day you're down here, and then the next day you're here, and all of a sudden all these inconsistencies. So if you're unpredictable, right? You're gonna get these employees that are just hesitant. Like, dang, that set off coach again. Like all of a sudden he's not consistent in who he is. And that's where I give a lot of these baby boomers, these strength coaches, a lot of credit, because they are consistent in who they are. And that's who they've been for a long time. So these younger strength coaches coming up, now it's your obligation to uphold it's almost like the badge of honor, right? So who's going to be who's going to be the cream of the crop, right? Who's going to be the next generation that steps up and sets new benchmarks, right? Because we're standing on shoulders of giants. Are you kidding me? Like I can't put my name next to any of these guys. But it's one day, like that's one of my goals. That's to be honest, I'll share this. Like my third goal is to do it better than Mickey Marotti did at Ohio State.
And it should.
Right? That's one of my goals, and guess what? That one's up there pretty good. So that's a challenge for me. And what do I put into place? I got to put my plan of action into place. I got to find ways of daily action to get that done, because I'm not just going to step into it. So what's my pathway from there? So for these young strength coaches coming up, you got to hone in on really what you believe in and who you are. And you got to start writing things down. Like obviously I got my notes, and like as soon as you asked me to do this, I'm like, I got to grab some substance here, because there's going to be a lot of listeners that this is going to impact, and I got to do my due diligence, because you're giving me this opportunity to speak, and guess what? I better be prepared for it, right? Because I'm going to have the ability to impact and inspire some listener. Maybe it's one, maybe we get one, and I'm good with that. You know what I mean? So if someone got better out there from what I had to say, I'm appreciative. But the thing is, we could make this so much better. We just got to keep educating. We got to keep educating. And for the people that hear about the Table Talk podcast, go tell 10 more people. Tell 10 more people. And all of a sudden we create this culture of learning, this culture of knowledge, and we keep driving it, and we make our professionals better. And all of a sudden we have this product that, you know what, people respect. We got a lot of strength coaches out here who are professional. They know what they're doing, and they believe in the right things.
Yeah. With the education aspect, the thing that is always astounding to me is there's a lot of people that think they have it all figured out, training wise.
Yeah.
Okay, let's forget about the mental side and all that. Just training wise, they have it all figured out. Meanwhile, you have Louis Simmons that says he reads every single day to try to make his system better. All right, so powerlifting for 4 decades at an elite level, not to just himself, not to include the number of people that he's coached himself, or as you know, I like to go, what a lot of people seem to forget is it's not a multiply training program, because there's thousands of coaches and athletes that are all using some type of conjugate methodology that don't even know what a squat suit is. You know, so the minority of the people that use his methodology, the very small minority, are the people in his own club. So you got this guy who will go down as somebody who completely changed the game.
Changed the game.
Right, changed it. All right, reads every day at his age still. Let's go to the other side. Buddy Morris, second strength coach ever hired, I believe, says he reads every day. Because he's amazed at how much he does not know. So he has to read every day to keep learning and to become better at the craft that he's at. So there we go. We just covered strength coach to, you know, supreme meathead. And both are given the exact same advice. Meanwhile, I got it all figured out. I got this ebook for $29.99. I got it figured out. You know, there's nothing else I can learn. You see what I'm saying? So the education aspect is huge. And when you're in positions like JL's in, you know, he has to stay on top of the training component, but also the business component.
Absolutely,
You know, I stay on top of the training component because it's a hobby and I like it and I love it. If my training knowledge exponentially increases, it's not going to help my business in any way whatsoever. All right, but my business knowledge has to change. Every single day I have to get better. I have to learn. I have to read. Same thing as anybody else. So I think that's a huge takeaway that a lot of people try to or I can't say the word. They dismiss because they're lazy. You know, they don't want to pick up a book, or they don't want to. I mean, you can put it on your iPad. It's a Kindle.
So the resources are unlimited.
Unbelievable. Let's jump to some questions.
All right.
So you guys fire away.
Yeah, here's one from the is my mic on there? Yeah. Here's one from the live chat. It said towards Phil. What was your favorite career moment so far as a strength coach?
That's a good one.
Favorite?
You guys have had some good moments.
That's a good one.
I'll tell you what. I thought I knew about the rivalry between the team up north and Ohio State. I'll tell you what. Like, I know, like, these unbelievable moments that you experience in life where it's like you just get overridden by emotion. Like, I'm telling you, like, from your gut all the way down to your toes, and like every hair stands up on your body. You know, I'll probably feel it on my wedding day. I'm going to compare my wedding day to beating the team up north. But you know, beating
Just
them.
Don't let your fiance hear that.
I know she's gonna listen. God love her. but beating them at home, how we did last year, and then when Kurt Sam took it in the end zone to beat him, I think in 16. That's pretty special. Obviously, that's the icing on the cake, but career moments, it goes down to the players. You find players that they're resistive towards you because you're coaching hard. You're telling them that all the things that they don't want to hear but they need to hear, and you have that breakthrough moment with them, and then all of a sudden you catch them in the cafeteria and they just break down crying. And it's happened with a lot of players, and like sometimes it's the big ones. Like it's the big suckers, like it's the 300-pounders, and all of a sudden you're trying to hold up a 300-pounder. But I would say that's, in a sense, one of the best feelings. Like when they get it, and they appreciate what you did for them, because you have your purpose, right? Like I'm gonna train these kids and do what I need to do for the kids, and do they really appreciate it? And you as a coach, you get to instill on how you want to do it. So every time I get the opportunity to train a kid, I always shake their hand. I don't bark at them to tell them what to do or send them over there. Hey, go do neck 2x12. I greet them. I shake their hand. I look them dead in the eye. I get a pulse on what's cooking behind the layers. And then at the end of the training session, it's that sandwich effect, right? It's like what they did good at, what they did awful at, and where the improvements are. And when you get them to actually get them to realize and accept that feedback, and you're like, and they say it before you do, you're like, okay, he's learning. Mm-hmm. He's learning. And that's a discipline that you have to get through to all these young 18 to 22-year-olds. You got to get this discipline. Like, what do you think I'm going to say? What do you really think I'm going to say? Because I'm going to be real right now, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to change that. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job. Mm-hmm. And I want to make my role uniquely different than everybody else. How am I going to do that? And that's your obligation. So if that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. Here's one from Chris Janik, one of our guys. He said, why do most if not all D1 football programs neglect deadlifts? Is it the risk reward or?
Oh yeah, I think I saw that posted. We'll trap bar deadlift, we'll sumo deadlift. So our program, our guys are very efficient at sumo deadlifting. So the developmental program will hit some trap bar work in season when we get them on those Fridays. But our players sumo deadlift, and they'll rip 455 and 495 off the deck. Great posture, locked in. So we'll reinforce that. We just got to coach it. I can't speak for the rest of the programs, but you get what you emphasize, and you get what you tolerate, right? So if you're going to coach up the squat and you want a quarter squat, then hopefully when I walk in your weight room, I see a quarter squat, because that's what you coached. Mm-hmm. Or if you want a hang clean done a certain way, or you want your pull-ups done a certain way, you get what you emphasize. So if you don't want a deadlift, or if you're scared of the deadlift, but it goes back into coaching, and do you know how to coach the deadlift? Can you properly implement it with a novice athlete that doesn't know, that can't do a step up because he's big baby? You know what I mean? So mm-hmm. You got to understand where you're going with things, and are you teaching it the right way? So one of the things I firmly believe in is educating over enabling, right? So I'm going to educate a player. And I'm going to educate him again, but I won't enable him. So I'm like, you have to go through this. You have to go through this yourself, and I'll coach you through it. But it's your job to understand that, if we're going to do sumo deadlifts, it's technical, right? Especially for a novice athlete. Okay, it's my job to give you the right cues. If I can't connect with that kid, I got to give him different cues. Hands down. I got to be able to find a way to deliver some sort of content to him that's clear, and that I can deliver with some conviction that's going to get him it's going to stick. can't go in one ear and out the other. So I can't speak for programs in that sense, but you know, we sumo deadlift, and our players do a phenomenal job.
All right.
I'll throw this out just as a thought, you know, something to think about. Is you only have so much time for the training session to transpire.
Yeah.
Big lifts, deadlifts, squats, things like that require more weight. Takes more time. There's more warm-up sets, so forth. So you have to ask yourself: is the dynamic course, is the carryover of what they're doing going to transfer to helping them be a better player? All right, and only you can answer that as a coach.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a specific answer that only a coach can answer, because a lot of these standards are not really established. It falls back on the experience.
Yeah.
You know, so when I talk to coaches, it's like, okay, what 5 things do you think have the greatest dynamic correspondence to the athletes with what they do? Whatever those 5 things are, let's build the shit out of those.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a time factor. So if it's going to say you have somebody that, let's say 15 guys out of the 80 can pull 600 pounds, that might take them 45 minutes.
No doubt.
You know, that might be all the time that you have allocated. Is that one movement going to have greater correspondence to the carrying over than what 4 or 5 others would? You know, it's just a thought to throw out for people to think about.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because people generally think movement, right? Deadlift, big, heavy movement. They don't think the number of total sets it's going to take to be able to get the work done, how much time it's going to take, what the rest periods are going to be. It might have to be a little longer rest periods, bigger compound movement. So now you go from 60-second rest to 3-minute rest, 2-minute rest, and all of a sudden it becomes the whole training session.
Yeah.
But it's just something to think about with that. Keeping it to trap bar shortens the warm-ups, you know, because they're usually more fresh, because it's more quad-based, less hamstring. So I see why that's in there. Sumo, kind of the same way, you know, less warm-ups, stuff like that. So just that's my input. It really is irrelevant because I'm answering not for him, but just in general, something I don't think people think about, where you can throw in a couple sets of pull downs, right? It's going to take them one warm-up set to figure out what weight to use. And if it's halfway through the workout, they may not even need the warm-up set. Just go to your work sets. You know, 2 sets of 12, go. Done. 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I will say, I mean, we'll do clean pulls from the floor, and, you know, that's the initial start of a deadlift position, and they've mastered that. You'll see guys handle 315, 335 with ease, great posture. So we're still getting that initial pull from the floor. So there's a deadlifting question.
Yeah, so that's like a speed pull in a way.
All right. If you guys already touched upon this, just let me know, we can pass. But what problems and deficiencies do you see with incoming freshmen, and what do you wish the high school coaches would be doing better? Did you guys touch on that in the beginning?
Not enough.
No.
I'll let you.
Yeah, that role is so important. That job and that role is so important. If and you'd be amazed to see what we get. But just the importance of that person and the impact and that carryover, you can tell what they've been doing. So, like, as soon as I find out who signs their NLI, and then I reach out to that player and I say, hey, let me get in touch with your strength coach. And from there, I hate throwing judgment out there, but I formulate an opinion, right? So it's like, oh, my strength coach, he hasn't called you yet, huh? No, he hasn't. You gave him my number. He hasn't called me yet. Perfect. Or I get the strength coach that is like over the top, and then he's got this crazy methodology, and all of a sudden, sure enough, this kid can't pull weight. His work capacity is shot. He does 10 sit-ups and he's gassed. So you can take your Q program and throw it out the window because it didn't work. So whatever you're putting on paper and the real-life application, there's a disconnect. So all of a sudden what you're saying you're doing and what you're actually doing to the athlete doesn't match up. So I'm calling BS on your integrity, right? So you're saying that this kid's going to be in tip-top shape when he gets here, right? I'm putting my trust in you to do that, right? So when he gets here, and it's not what I heard over the phone or the conversations that we've had via email or whatever it was, then what happens? I formulate an opinion, so it's like, come on, be better. At the end of the day, take care of these kids.
Mm-hmm.
Do your job. Take care of the players. And that's what it comes down to. Formulate these systems that anyone can walk into your room, and you're a high school strength coach, and you're like, wow, this place is tight. I'm good. I saw what I needed to see. Like, you probably formulated an opinion as soon as you walked into our weight room, right? Intern brought you in. I think I was doing like a manual with a player because he had a busted hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, you probably formulated an opinion about what was going on in that room, right?
Oh, to a degree. I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah,
so
so, like,
I don't,
Yeah, but like at the same time, like that's what we're programmed to see. Like, you can walk into the room and find the pulse of the room.
Yeah.
You can clearly identify what's going on. You can find out what key components are in place. You find out what players are, okay, that's a leader right there. That's a leader right there.
That you can find immediately, yes.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, that's the head strength coach. Okay, that's the assistant. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the intern. Okay, that's a trainer. Okay, cool. Yep, you get to identify. And that's the thing, like, you get to go see. Like, anybody walks into a high school strength coach, and this is where I would love to see added effort in the high school setting, right, and standards being met in the high school setting, because you got our youth. And you have an obligation to them. So that's my rant on the high school strength coach.
All right. How high should a player maintain their level of aerobic conditioning in the off season?
Oh yeah, off season.
Anything else you want to add in about the off season?
Off season. So the off season, it's tricky, right? So when a strength coach hears off season, right? So one, you got to do your assessment, right? So if you're a new strength coach coming into a new program, right? So Luke Fickle going into Cincinnati, right? Or when they took over Florida State or Oregon, new strength coaches going in. You got to assess the situation, right? So what have they been doing? For how long? Did they make a bowl game, or did they not? And you got to be cognizant of what has been applied to those athletes, because all of a sudden that's when you run into two scenarios, right? The conditioning aspect and the rhabdo aspect, right? So aerobically, you got to progress these guys. Like, whatever you believe in, if you're going to have an aerobic base and you're going to do some work capacity stuff and phase it in, you just got to do it correctly. So don't overcomplicate, but be specific in your means. So aerobically.
Okay.
Why would you say there's the increase in rhabdo? Would you say that there actually is an increase, or it's just being reported more?
That's a great question. Well, what's coming up on the radars, right? So what's coming up on the ESPN ticker? You had the Oregon case, you had the Nebraska case. Is it just not the right progression at the right time? Is it too much intensity too fast? How much time did they have off? Were they inactive for 4 weeks or 2 weeks, or did they make a bowl game and then you came right in? Those are the questions that you got to ask. But is it coming up more frequently? It's becoming known more frequently. Did it in the past, did it just get brushed under the rug? Maybe. I'm not sure, but we have access now to all this information, and as soon as something happens, it's on the media.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you can't hide.
On the positive side, though, you also have access to new technology, to be able to track, a lot more things. Like, if you really wanted to, and you may, for all I know, you could have a Fitbit or a tracking device on these guys 24/7, so when they get laid, when they don't. Just based upon heart rate, if you really wanted to. I mean, seriously, if you did really want, you could track their heart rate 24/7. And track everything. I don't know if that's
Speaking of new technology like that, one of the questions that kind of leads into was, what are a few major developments that have revolutionized strength and conditioning at the collegiate level? I don't know if he's talking about devices or if maybe protocols or something like that, but
I would think he's talking devices type things.
Yeah, I'd say Brian Mann had a great article on velocity-based training. I mean, you'll see that but that's not new stuff.
No.
It's Tendo units and elite forms and, Tendo units that have been around for ages. But, you have all these new technologies that kind of mimic that, and people have, the elite forms and push and all these different brands to basically get the same thing. In the other spectrum of new technologies is all these recovery modalities that we were kind of talking about when we had lunch. It was like from the float tanks to the cryo chambers and all these new resources that are out, and to actually help recover from stimulus. So that would be one of the new things that we're heavily in. We just had our East Wing finished, so we have 2 float tanks. We have nap chairs and a sauna and the cryo chamber, all the good stuff. So once that's it's in play, it's almost ready to be flipped the switch and use it on a daily basis. So we've only been operating with 1 float tank for the past 2 years. So we're going to have an adequate facility for that now. So I would say probably that would be the new technologies that we're currently using, along with other SMR and all the Graston, Normatex that you see. There's a ton of great modalities out there. It's just cupping. We got athletic trainers that are certified to do cupping. Our one PT is lights out. He's a game changer. That's a guy whose job and his role is probably unreplaceable, and he helps our return to play athletes immensely. He's a game changer, that guy. So it's like, is it recovery modalities or is it people?
That's a good question. Do you train incoming freshmen with the same template and exercise selection as the players that you've had time training under you?
I think Rhodes went on a rant about this, like my incoming freshman program, and so we do an ooze program at Ohio State. That's what we've kind of called it over the years, and it's ooze tempo. We are going to ooze our freshmen into the program, and it's going to be just piece by piece. We're going to teach them, we're going to educate them, and it's basically going off your progressions and regressions. So where do we fit? We're going to take them at the bottom and just build them. We're going to progress them, and then we're going to monitor where that single athlete is, meet them where they're at, and progress them.
Do you keep them away from the other players for X period of time while you're oozing them in?
So we'll do about a 2-week phase.
Okay.
And we'll integrate them first with upper body. Right now they're still separate lower body because that's such a technical skill. Being able to front squat to back squat to lunge and hinge, and then push, right? If we start pushing sleds or pulling sleds, they are not by any means prepared for that. You know what I mean? All of a sudden you get a freshman that pushes a empty prowler 4 sets of 25, and then you get the prowler flu. Meanwhile, our seniors and juniors are pushing 275, not blinking an eye. That's where you just got to be smart. I think as a coach, you got to know how to progress those athletes, especially from upper body training to lower body training, and just being smart in how you do it and go about it.
Speaking of the prowler flu, you guys use the prowler pretty heavily, right? Can you talk on what the impact that's done for you guys training, or how much you're using that? Or
I mean, we use a ton of modalities in that sense. We got the prowlers, we got the old school ram sleds, we got the Austin leg drive, and we have this creative little wooden box. So I'm telling you, if you want to cause some misery, you put somebody in that box. And all it is it's like a 2x4 box with a lip on it. And what you can do is, we call it a buddy drag. All right, so you and I are partners. You sit in the box, I got a harness on, I put it around my waist, I start doing my drags. It's pretty simple. It's a buddy drag. And it's just a lower body pull or a push. And it's simple. right? But using that in the sense of training, same thing. You got to be smart with it. How you implement it, when you implement it, and how you're going to progress that.
What's the responsibility of the person sitting in the box?
Encourage.
Yes.
Encourage.
I saw that. There's a reason why. They're there is to coach the other person up. Mm-hmm. And if they don't encourage, what's the ramifications?
Oh yeah, we coach them to encourage.
And if they don't, they get the L. Right?
Oh yeah. If that's what it comes, if it's that bad, absolutely. I mean that point in time, you're talking about, you're probably doing some extensive work. So all of a
they're
sudden,
breathing hard.
Heart rate's going out. Yeah, up through the roof, and all of a sudden their mouth breathing, and then all of a sudden you get the lineman that starts pulling on his shirt because he can't bear the weight of his arms on his stomach. You know what I mean? And you start crossing the legs, and then all of a sudden coaching goes out the window. So, how tough are you in that moment? Can you actually coach your partner up like we told you to do, or are you going to just sit there in your self-pity and say, oh my God, I'm dragging my buddy, and my buddy's big baby, he's 383.
He's no longer a buddy.
He's no longer a buddy.
No, but you just described 4 reads to be able to tell if your athlete is close to brink or not. All right. So what are some other ones that you could throw out there? Because a lot of coaches don't know what you just said. Dragging, pulling on the shirt. A lot of things that we think everybody knows, they don't.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Body language is huge.
Hands on thighs. Pulling on a shirt.
Yeah.
Mouth breathing. You said another one. I just forgot what it was.
Crossing the legs.
Crossing the legs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's 60% of it is body language.
Yes.
Right. When you're constantly communicating with anybody, 60% of it's body language, and so I can see body language from a distance. Like I mess around with our players, and like we'll be doing dynamic warm up. And I'll just take one of my coaching styles is I take a knee, I get down on their level.
Yeah.
Right. So they might be doing like a hydrant series or a ground mobility series, and I'm going to bring myself down to their level. That way, it's not like me just standing up over top and I'm barking down on them. So I'll take a knee, right? And I'm very strategic about how I do that, and I'll just coach from a distance. So I'll see somebody doing something wrong, and I'll coach them from 50 yards away or 40 yards away, and this guy's laughing because I'm coaching that guy up over there. But the thing is, like, coaching never stops. Coaching never stops. Your sight lines have to be on point. You got to put yourself in a position where you can see a lot, and that way you can see your sight lines are clear. You know what you're coaching, and then you can identify when issues come up. So when you get to your conditioning work or your metabolic work, and all of a sudden the heart rate's going up. Okay, everyone's antennas will go up. Right now you can clearly manage and see these behavioral patterns that arise when you start training that way. So all of a sudden, like, okay, I'm watching my linemen, I'm watching my sickle cell guys, right? All of a sudden we're starting to push sleds. All of a sudden you're seeing, okay, what's their body telling me? All right, if calves start cramping and I know he's a sickle cell guy, trainer, come here, pull the kid, let's talk to him, right? As a coach, you got to know these warning signs, right? And all of a sudden, like, you also got to know your player. Like, is he going to work hard for you, or is he dogging it right now? You got to kind of know how far you can push kids, and that's the art of coaching, right? And that's why this job is not built for robots. Like, this is a person job, along with everyone that else is out there, right?
Yes.
So if you're not seeing these things, if you're managing a group of people and you're not cognizant of what their behaviors are when it gets hard, or you're not getting what you want, and if you're not communicating that, disaster is going to happen. Something's going to unfold, and someone's going to get hurt, or something's going to go wrong. The business is going to go down, and that's the thing. Like, you got to get your sight lines on people. You got to get your sight lines on who's the most important people and who's your direct reports. Like I oversee 16 interns. My job is to help dive into them as much as I can. And if I go, like, it's tough because I got 5 with me every single day, but I got to get to the ones in the other facilities. And so how do I talk to them? Like, how do I communicate with them? Do I call them on my way home from work, or am I texting them, or am I going out of my way to go see them and just kind of spring in on them and put them on the spot? that's what it is. Like your sightlines on people, your sightlines on athletes play a huge role in how you do your job.
Yeah, and you have to establish what their norm is. If it's helping somebody in a weight room or just in business, you got to know what somebody's norm is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have flawed sight lines. If it's not, you're talking sight lines like visual sight lines, which are extremely important for the aerobic conditioning.
Oh yeah.
For the anaerobic, I think it depends on the movement. You know what I'm saying? Some you need to be close, others need to be far. But just it doesn't have to be visual. You know what I'm saying? It can be behavioral. Is this a person that wears their headphones every single day? All right, now for some reason they're not wearing them today.
Yeah.
Are your headphones broke?
Yeah.
No, they're fine. Ooh, shit. I need to check back. Something's going on here.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Let's just sit and assess.
It goes back to asking the right questions to the right people. Like, your job as a coach to assess. Like, okay, then assess.
Yeah. So we have a lot of headphones. It's e-commerce, so there's video editing and there's all that other kind of stuff. So sometimes it can be that's one of my. I'm going to give it away. It's one of my cues. I pretty much know how often everybody has, at least when I'm here, the headphones on.
Yeah.
If it's consistently always on, it's avoidance. There's avoidance behavior.
Yeah.
Why is there avoidance behavior?
So,
sometimes I know, and then I just let it go. They're going through some shit or whatever it is.
They got to figure it out on their own.
They're fine. Sometimes it's not. So it's sight lines, like what you're talking about. What's the normal behavior? Everybody's got their personality. Obviously Rhonda's got a different personality than everybody else. So I know what that is when I come through the door. It doesn't take me a long time to get a pulse of what's going on.
Yeah.
When I've been I've been with the company longer than anybody.
Yeah, right.
I've owned it, so I know what it's supposed to feel like, what it's not supposed to feel like, and when it's off. And the crazy thing, this is crazy, and I can never. There's no explanation for it. When it's a medium to small business, I call it drama. All right. When it's a corporation, it's politics. Right. It's whatever you want to call it. All right. Whenever there's excessive drama within the company, online sales drop. Tell me why that happens. There's no correlation.
Really?
None. Because the marketing and so forth is basically handled by me and a different person. A person's been with the company forever, so it has nothing to do with marketing.
Yeah.
All right. Customer service is still customer service. Most of the orders are handled, either online or via, purchase order, which is 50% of our sales or purchase order or equipment. But that correlation is always there. Yeah. So on the flip side, if I see a big decrease in sales, I don't look at my first place. I used to always look at the analytics of the site.
Yeah.
That's not the first place I look anymore. I stopped that 6 years ago.
Yeah.
The first place I look is what's going on internally.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. I can't tell you why. I just know it's true.
Yeah. But you have a pulse on it. And you see it.
Then
you identify it.
Flip, it goes back up. I would love it to be like a metric, here's this metric that this is this, and in a way it kind of is. It's just a weird one. What else you got?
All right, we got this was a good one to end on, unless you guys got anything else you want to cover. But this is so this wasn't supposed to be a deep question the way the guy asked it, but I'm gonna flip it a little bit. So he said, what do you guys consider to be strong? Not specific to any sport. And then he said, you just look at someone and you can kind of tell they're strong. But I'm talking like what do you look at someone and see them as a strong person? Or what does it take?
Right now in our building, we're talking about toughness. And for the average person, you're probably talking about, I'm tough, and then what's that mean for some people? It's, hey, let's go out that back door and we're gonna find out who's tough. All of a sudden you're in a street fight and you're talking about the tougher guys that'll win. But for our athletes and what we're trying to push right now, and the generation that we're trying to connect to, is like, what's tough? It's doing what you're told to do. What's tough? Being on point and doing what's right all the time. What's tough? Listening and accepting coaching. What's tough? Making checking the schedule, seeing when you train, and showing up at the right time. And then we keep diving into it. Like, what's tough? Like, our nutritionists do a great job making post-workout shakes, and they got the kid's name on it. What's tough? Making sure you go and get that shake. That's the most important thing that you got going on right now. If you're banged up, what's being tough? Going and getting treatment. Making sure you're handling what you need to handle. So being tough right now in our facility, it's one of our philosophical objectives right now for the summer. So being a tough guy, like what's that mean? It's right now we're trying to drive it home to our players, and some it's working phenomenal. Some it's like you got to keep pushing it, and it's just one of those things where how bad do you care about it? Finds out it really shows how tough you are. All of a sudden we had a short turnover the other day. We did a team run later at night, and all of a sudden we had an early morning Friday workout. You think you're going to be recovered enough? Probably not, but you better go upstairs, get a great dinner, rehydrate, and probably go to bed right now. You know what I mean? So like, what's tough? Going to bed right now and not sitting in my bed on my phone until 2 a.m. and I got to wake up at 5:15 for a 6 a.m. lift. You know what I mean? So it's like, how are we trying to focus in on our vision and be intentional with what we're telling these athletes right now? Because you got to meet the generation where they're at, and they're heavy driven through social media. They're heavy driven with distractions, lack of focus, and guess what? We're driving all those things to kind of attack those behaviors. So right now, are you a tough guy? And that's what we're preaching. Like, how tough are you? Doing what you're told to do, how you're supposed to do it, when you're supposed to do it. And Coach does a phenomenal job of delivering that. We don't go astray from it. We're not like our messaging in our building is unique. Everyone's speaking the same lingo, and I think when organizations and leaders and your leadership council or whoever you got in your staff is speaking the same message from every avenue, so when this athlete walks through the building, it's like, hey, you a tough guy? And then all of a sudden he walks through that room, he's like, oh, hey, you a tough guy? Hey, you a tough guy? So it's like the message is the same. It's not going to be confusing for the kid. So in that aspect, there's no hiding from it. It's like, hey, did you eat a meal after your training session like you were supposed to and get your post-workout shake? If not, right there, take the L.
Yeah.
All right? And it's just teaching these kids accountability. And, it's a unique system because we do so much with them. We do so much sport application work with them right now. They're prepping. All of a sudden today they got 45 minutes of actual skill work with their position group. So football's dialing up right now, and there's a lot of pressure on. It's 4th and 1 when you walk in that building, and there's a lot of obligation. And you know what it's like to train. Like if you're treating your body like trash, you think you're gonna have a great training session? Probably not. And it's just one of those things where we keep pushing, like doing what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, and how you're supposed to do it. Be tough.
Anything to add there, Dave?
I'll go both routes. So if you want to talk about physical strength, I can usually pick out somebody's physical strength by the development of their upper back and erectors. But typically the upper back is the biggest tell. Not how tall their traps are, but how thick their traps are right between their shoulder blades and that upper back area. The athletes and the lifters that I see with that developed are physically always the strongest, because the opposite of that are the ones that you see that almost look like they have a hole between the shoulder blades. All right, and the hole's not good. The hole needs filled in. So that's from the physical. That's what I always looked at from if I was in a meet and I had to kind of gauge my competition that I didn't know from across the room. I'd look there, and if it was like, oh shit, all right, then I'd look at the erectors, and if that's thick, it's like, oh shit. All right, then if their tricep was really thick around their elbow, I knew I was beat, you know, because they had all three.
Yeah.
You know, so that's from the physical standpoint. From the mental standpoint, I think Phil hit all of it. I think it's, you know, if you're a strong person, you're going to have accountability and responsibility for the roles in the life and your life that you fill. So it's a very simple statement, you know, to say I'm going to be responsible as, you know, a business owner, responsible as a husband, responsible as a father, responsible as a training partner, responsible as X. Very simple to state. Not so simple to be consistently responsible at doing. All right, it's creating habits, creating rituals, if you say, and just being responsible. Because without being responsible, you will not be able to build trust. You're going to lack character, and you're going to lack integrity. So you're going to lack, you know, those attributes across the board from anybody who's ever going to look at you. The second component of that is accountability. You know, taking accountability for when you screw up in all those roles, you know, as father, business owner, whatever it is. Sometimes the accountability, it's not your fault, but you're still accountable for it. All right. Fault and accountability are entirely two different things. Entirely two different things. I'm accountable for a lot of things, you know, that I may not be directly my fault, but it's my responsibility to be accountable for that. The strongest person is the one that's able to take responsibility and accountability for themselves and how they hold that standard for themselves, not how other people look at that standard.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, so self-accountability, self-responsibility is the strongest person you're going to find. And that's irregardless, profession, genre, anything.
Yeah.
You know, that you find somebody, find me anybody that has that self-responsibility, that self-accountability, and I'm going to show you somebody that's successful at what they do and damn proud of themselves for everything that they've done. And pride matters.
But yeah.
And you also find a person that other people are going to say that's a person of high integrity, that's a person of high character, that's a person, you know, that they want to be. And it's all self-controlled.
Yeah, it goes into that successful people do consistently what average people do occasionally. Right? So every successful person, they got an agenda. They're probably dialed in, and they're rooted into how they do things, and they're very successful at it, but they're very consistent at it as well. And then all of a sudden the average person kind of just dabbles into it occasionally, right? So you probably see that in training, you probably see that in staff and everything in general, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was always told that, you know, integrity is like a value that's not really a value. Because integrity is ultimately your ability to hold your values irregardless of if it benefits or doesn't benefit you, you know, personally. So because it's easy to make excuses, like on a scale, let's say a statistical scale. It's easy to say, you know, honesty, man, it's one of my values. It's, you know, right there in the middle. It's 0, you know, +1, +2, +3, +4, +5. I like to keep it at like +3, 4, you know, right there. That's a real good place. You know, if it falls down to 0, we get it back up, right? As soon as you allow -1 standard deviation, -2 standard deviation, you're no longer 3 or 4. Next thing you know, you wake up and you don't even know who you are anymore.
You're lost.
You can't sleep at night. You're stressed out all the time because you're not living by your own values. You're not living by what you believe yourself to be or what you want to become. And now you can't sleep. You're stressed. You make excuses and you become a person nobody wants to associate with, let alone you don't even want to associate with yourself. then that's where the problem comes in.
Yeah, yeah.
So the strongest people are the ones that are more than willing to associate and develop themselves.
It's so true.
All right, thanks, guys.
That it?
Yep.
Cool.